6 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Well, there you are. What are for you the three things today that according to you, drives the national pulse? And it can be something very national or something very personal that ultimately impacts the national pulse. I'll tell you what, I can think about three things. I can think about the fact that load shedding is now about 90 days with no load shedding. Surprise, surprise. The cabinet, we're close on to a month now. Just about. We still do not have a cabinet or government executive formed. And the third one that certainly gets me considering the national pulse is the fact that we've had no water in the northern suburbs of Joburg for over 36 hours now. So those are my things that for me drives the national pulse. You may tell me what yours are. As always, 086 000 2032 to WhatsApp, text or voice note 0614 104 107. And please connect as well on social media. Follow SFM Radio and myself on Twitter, on the X platform, as well as on Facebook. Use the hashtag The National Pulse. Well, my name is Ashraf Garda, and as always, a warm welcome to you, and really a great privilege to have you as part of the show, part of the audience, and a participant with the many ways that you engage with us on the show. Let me start with the That's My Point feature. So, 2 weeks ago, I had a chat with the newly elected Deputy Speaker of Parliament of the National Assembly, and I asked her the word honourable. When we address these the ministers, I mean, is that something in law? And she said, you know what, it's just custom. The Honourable Mr. So-and-so, the Honourable Comrade, or well, they wouldn't say comrade, would they? But certainly they would talk about honourable and sometimes praise and not praise. And the fact that she said it's custom, it's really not something, it's not an actual requirement. I mean, it's got me thinking. Often it infuriates me, and it's almost like comedy, where you would get a person who would stand up in the National Assembly and in fact refer to the person as honourable and be very, very critical of that person. So for example, like you would say, the Honourable Mr. So-and-so is completely out of order and should withdraw that statement, or the honourable person is a scoundrel. And I'm just wondering, surely isn't it time that we actually drop that title honourable and replace it with actually nothing? Just call them by their first name and surname. Why even only the surname? Why the formality in South Africa in 2024? Just, call them by their first name. So if, for example, I'm just trying, I know Fikile Mbulula is not in Parliament, but assuming he was, if you want to talk to him, Zizi Kodwa is there, so let's call him. So say, I'd like to just say that I agree or disagree with the position taken by Zizi Kodwa. Just say that, not the honourable. That's what I think. You tell me what you think about all of that. It's something I think we need to change. Otherwise, it just doesn't work for me. And it's actually pretty boring, in my opinion. But you tell me, what's your take? Well, that's my point. What's yours?
You are listening to The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, so we're gonna chat about a whole range of issues today, and I'll tell you what, they're all really important. One, Julian Assange, by the way, out of prison. And what does that all mean? The goings on in Kenya, you know that now the president has withdrawn that, not withdrawn, he's referred that finance bill that's caused such a protest. He's referred that back to Parliament. There's been massive protests. There's been deaths as well in Kenya. And we're going to talk about that too. The Free Market Foundation is what we're going to talk about next in terms of their proposals for where we're going to go with the 7th administration, right? And there's certainly more than that as well. There are a range of other issues as well that we need to be covering, right? And I'd like to get your thoughts as well. By the way, KFC's got that Ad Hope campaign. You may be aware of that too, right? And they themselves, that's the KFC, have collected huge amounts of money about that. We're going to talk about that as well just now, right? We do have right now the position from the Free Market Foundation. They've released a policy agenda for the government of national unity that will now effectively run the 7th administration. So with me is Morne Malan, who's the communications manager at the Free Market Foundation. Morne, appreciate your time. Welcome to the National Pulse.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Right. Okay, so tell me about this. I mean, it's an interesting title in terms of even setting an agenda in terms of your policy charter. What's the reason behind it, firstly?
Yes, well, the Free Market Foundation has been, ceaselessly advocating for free market principles, for liberalism for decades now. But we believe that, post the 2024 election, there's a unique opportunity. Doesn't mean these things are guaranteed, doesn't mean they're going to happen overnight, but there is a unique opportunity at the moment where there's a path towards the pursuit of genuine policy reform, and we felt that it's the best opportunity now to put an agenda on the table and to ensure that this, to basically also communicate that this is what we're going to be fighting for during this term, and that's what we're going to be advocating in government.
Okay, understand. I mean, the entire policy document is called what is it called? Liberty. Put liberty first, right? So perhaps I'll just ask you if you can give me maybe 5 key bullet points, just quick one-liners that are the highlights of the proposal, and we'll pick it up from there.
Yes, well, it's liberty first because, put simply, the facts have shown that those countries that have the freest markets also have the most prosperous people. And the 5 main bullet points that we focus on in our policy agenda are, firstly, reducing the size of government, reforming the legal system and protecting property rights, protecting the value of the South African currency, promoting freedom to trade internationally, and cutting unnecessary and harmful regulation.
Okay, those are the 4. Those are going each one down the line. Let's talk about the first one. I mean, tell me how it plays out. Your point about the countries that have the freest markets have are the most prosperous. Is that always true? There may be a counter to that, and in fact, one of the counters would be it can't just be about prosperity by the way you measure it, but others have different ways of measuring it.
Well, no. Look, the fact of the matter is that regardless of what range of criteria you're using to measure prosperity, freer countries where property rights are being protected, countries where people are free to develop themselves, to engage in economic activity, to self-actualize and to express themselves, those countries are the most prosperous. And even amongst the poorest 10% of the population, you see that they are about 8 times, the poorest 10% of the population in free countries are about 8 times richer than the poorest 10% in relatively less free countries. Okay,
you make a point about individual liberty. What's your reason for that? I mean, I would think that we have a high degree of individual liberty in our country.
No, well, individual liberty is being encroached upon on various stages. On the one hand, the amount of tax that we have to pay, the fact that we have such a centralized government where so many decisions are being made at a national level as opposed to closer to the ground, closer to where people can actually influence policy. And in terms of civil liberties, there are also plenty of aspects in our current situation where we don't have the ability or the necessary civil liberties that we would otherwise want. So there are a wide range, particularly when it comes to economic activity, particularly when it comes to trading internationally, where government has placed extremely stringent requirements and are continually interfering with the operations of the market.
Okay, then you talk about private property, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more.
Yes, private property is probably one of the most essential priorities of a free market and of a prosperous society. People need to know that when they obtain property as a means of their labor, when they put the work in, when they receive a salary, and when they use that salary to eventually buy property, then that property will be protected. When people don't have any guarantee that they'll be able to maintain their property rights, or that those property rights will not be properly protected, then people will stop. Then that way lies anarchy, basically.
Okay, and then linked to that, free enterprise?
Yes, free enterprise, probably one of the most important drivers of growth, of economic growth and of prosperity, throughout the world has been trading internationally. And rather than imposing a bunch of harmful tariffs, a bunch of harmful barriers to international trade, we should be opening up our markets, freely engaging with the rest of the world, and becoming part of a global society, as opposed to trying to just have a small section of the global economy for ourselves.
And then the last one is, you talk about constitutional limitations, if I understand that correctly. What does that mean?
Constitutional limitations?
I guess I missed something there. Well, what was your last point?
Yeah, the last point was about cutting unnecessary and harmful regulation. And there's plenty of points here. The most prominent points would be the repeal of the National Health Insurance Act, the repeal of the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act, all these sorts of things that encroach upon people's right to choose their healthcare provider, right to choose or right to obtain the medical services that they want, and on the other hand, harmful laws that attempt to interfere with school boards, that attempt to interfere with the education of the next generation.
Now, I mean, you've got these points in terms of this policy document. Clearly, you're hoping to have an audience that buys into it. How hopeful are you?
Yes, well, as I alluded to in the introduction, it's not as though we see these things as a guarantee, but we do believe that we've reached a new epoch within the South African experiment, and that we have as good an opportunity as ever to finally see reform in South Africa, because it's been quite clear that what we have done for the past 30 years hasn't worked. So as opposed to trying more of the same, let's try something new. Interesting,
you call what we've had so far as an experiment. It's a rather strange word to use.
Sorry,
I said you've described what we've experienced so far in the country as an experiment. I find it rather strange.
Well, it's just a means of expression. A lot of countries refer to what they're doing as an experiment. You try various different things in terms of policy, and you see which works best. We believe that in the past 30 years that most of the policies that we've tried out have not borne much fruit, and now it's time to try something new.
What do you think, therefore, in terms of what is unfolding right now in our country with regards to this government party sharing form of government, right? What do you think about it, and do you think how much of that, in terms of how it's being formulated right now, would be partial to what you've just proposed?
Yes, well, we as the Free Market Foundation have actually been arguing for a confidence and supply, what we've called a no-elition form of government. However, we understand that there is a desire amongst the political parties to form a government of national unity, or basically a super coalition. And we're actually less concerned about the way in which the government chooses to construct itself. We don't really want to get into specific political identities. We'd rather argue on the basis of ideas.
But you said you want them to buy into ideas. Let's leave it at that. Morne Malan, the communications manager at the Free Market Foundation. What do you think about the proposals they've put forward? Give me your thoughts.
And we would buy 500 cars, and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price, and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Are you ready to buy or build your first home or buy a stand anywhere in South Africa? If you are a South African citizen, you and your spouse have never benefited from a government housing subsidy program, and your household income is between 3,501 and 22,000 Rand per month, your dream can be realized by applying for a first home finance subsidy. To apply, just log into the First Home Finance application online portal at firsthomefinance.co.za or call a call center agent on 010-085-2199 to assist you for free with completing your First Home Finance online application. Beware, applying for First Home Finance Subsidy is free. Do not pay anyone when applying for the subsidy. The NHFC is an agency of the National Department of Human Settlements.
Emails, kind regards, school pickups, traffic, goals, live. Hey, kuningi. We know. But it doesn't have to be. With UNISA, you get to define your tomorrow. Why not shape your future with flexible and accessible learnings that accommodate your lifestyle? Applications for a limited number of masters and doctoral qualifications for the 2024 academic year are still open for admission. Visit unisa.ac.za for more information. UNISA, define tomorrow.
Right, you may want to make a note of this, particularly if you are shopping around for the best car insurance deals on the market. Now, 46-year-old Zanele got a great deal on her car insurance when she called Outsurance. She now pays only 1,313 rands to insure her white 2023 Audi Q2 1.4 T FSI S-Line Stronic. So get an Outsurance quote and see if you could save. SMS out to 30754 now. You got that? Out to 30754. License, insurer, and FSP T's and C's apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
I see quite a few people asking or answering questions about the honourable. I asked the question whether we should drop the title honourable when addressing each other in Parliament. Both when we compliment and in particular when we criticise. It is such a strange thing. Madam Speaker, the honourable so and so is out of order. That sort of language, it just doesn't work for me. So should we drop it? Time for a revision, and if so, what do we replace it with? So where would you put Julian Assange in terms of honourable or dishonourable? He's the WikiLeaks founder. We know that. He's a free man and has returned home to Australia after pleading guilty in a deal that ended this year-long legal battle. Remember, he ran WikiLeaks. We all know about it. I think we should. It's a website that published many confidential or restricted official reports relating to war, spying, corruption, particularly with regard to the United States authorities. And then he was accused by the US of conspiring to break into its military database to acquire sensitive information and was charged with 18 offences. So he's now a free man. Let's find out more what this really means with Brooks Spector, the associate editor at the Daily Maverick. Brooks, good chatting to you once again on the National Pulse.
Well, good afternoon. I guess I'm an honorable person.
Well, you've said it yourself, and I'm not going to necessarily agree or disagree. I'll just keep shut for now. I'm sure you'll appreciate that one. Yes, let's talk about Julian Assange. So first of all, what do you understand in terms of the deal that was made that got him to plead guilty, I understand, and is now a free man?
Yeah, as far as I can determine, he agreed to plead guilty to one charge of espionage out of all the various ones that have been applied, and in return, the U.S. government would not oppose his leaving Britain and moving back to Australia from whence he came originally. I wouldn't quite call him a free man. I would call him a convicted felon who is no longer in prison or under restraint, because that's effectively what it means. It's in the same way that Donald Trump is. Yes, he's a free man, but he's also a convicted felon. Assange, with his WikiLeaks, published or made available, shall we say, because it wasn't basically published in paper terms, it was electronic, a vast database of government material, some video, lots of written, most of which was classified at one level or another. And the Assange faction said that he was a whistleblower and revealing serious malfeasance or much worse on the part of the government and or its agents. The counter-argument was at the time that he was simply taking stolen material and making it available to everybody and anybody without vetting it, looking at it carefully, analyzing it, or somehow going through it and picking things and verifying them. And so that's where matters stood. He ended up in the Ecuadorian embassy in London for years in a couple of rooms as the British were determining whether or not he would be extradited to Sweden, because there were two women there who accused him of sexual assault or worse. Those women eventually dropped their charges, and so what was left was the question of whether or not he would be charged for committing a felony or felonies in the United States, and would he therefore have to be extradited to America to stand trial for this. Now, his own people kept saying that he was seriously afraid that he would be executed. As far as I can tell, the last time somebody was executed in the United States under an espionage charge after a trial was right at the beginning of the Cold War. In the case of the two Rosenbergs, husband and wife, who had purloined atomic secrets from the Manhattan Project and handed them off to a then Soviet agent, and whether or not they were appropriately charged as the masterminds was always open to some debate, but they were in fact executed. But that I think the execution was 1951 or 52, so it's been quite a while since somebody got executed for espionage.
How do you think history will judge Julian Assange? Because I would think that legally a villain, but a hero to many people as well.
I think the judgment's going to be mixed. It's going to be one of those things where there are always going to be competing views on the matter. Should he have taken the material that there is no question was taken illegally and distributed freely and openly, or should he have gone through it very carefully with a fine-tooth comb, or should he have gone to trial because he would have then had the opportunity to prove that he was doing the work that a good whistleblowing citizen should do, and I think we're going to hear those various versions of it for quite a long time. A lot of people are going to write PhD theses on this, and there'll be books published on it, and there are going to be case studies in universities that deal with security studies and government policy. And I mean, one other footnote.
Very quickly,
Yeah, one of the reasons why there was so much material he could get a hold of was because after the 9/11 crash, much of the confidential, secret, and top secret material was made much more easily available among government officials and officers in an effort to make sure people could track trends and identify possibilities. That's one of the reasons why so much material was available for the person who gave it to him.
And there's many questions to come out of that. Brooks Spector, let's leave it at that. Brooks is the associate editor at the Daily Maverick, speaking about Julian Assange. And maybe, has it changed the way that governments and other organizations that deal with intelligence, has it changed the way they work with each other in terms of sharing of documents? Think about that. Let's get the news headlines now. It's just gone 3:30. Here's Madupi.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines this hour, former Free State Premier Mxolisi Tukwana has been appointed as the Speaker of the Provincial Legislature. The Chief Whip of Parliament's NCOP says it is important to note that the council is independent of the National Assembly, and security has been deployed to Kenya's High Commission in Uganda following an attack by Kenyan protesters on Uganda House in Nairobi. A full news update at 4.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 westbound in Crown has delays towards Main Reef Road. The R21 northbound in Kempton Park has a crash at Voortrekker Road. Bryanston Drive eastbound in Morningside has a crash at Coleraine Drive in Midrand. The N1 northbound has a stationary vehicle near New Road exit, and the N1 southbound has a crash reported before Buccleuch interchange. In KZN, the N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The M7 is roadworks with traffic restrictions towards the Bel Air Road, Wakesley Road junction. The N3 in both ways has roadworks with traffic restrictions in that Cliffdale area, and the N3 eastbound, an earlier crash reported at Ashburton, has been cleared. In Cape Town, Chapman's Peak Drive remains closed due to rockfalls. The N2 westbound is queuing at Victoria Street. Bacon Cross Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway, and Victoria Road has traffic restrictions in that Bantry Bay area, so delays are possible. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, our own Minister of Sport is in the hot seat. To me, what have we got today?
Well, a very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. We start things off with football, and Bafana are in action today in the COSAFA Cup. And Cape Town Spurs defender Rashwan Dotley says that being named Bafana captain at the COSAFA Cup will help ease the pain of his club's relegation from top flight. Now, the 22-year-old will be wearing the captain's armband as South Africa get their campaign underway today against Mozambique at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium at 6 p.m.
It's a big honor for me to, first of all, be chosen for this team, to represent the country, and being the captain of this team. It's a great team, and it's a big honor captaining the country at this level, and it's really honor for me.
Meanwhile, Lionel Messi may sit out of Argentina's next Copa America game against Peru to rest a sore thigh, with his team already qualified for the next round after 2 weeks. The 37-year-old required brief medical treatment on his thigh during Argentina's 1-0 win over Chile at the US-hosted tournament. Argentina currently at top of Group A with 6 points and will play Peru on Sunday. In cricket, Proteas captain Aiden Markram says that their experience and having been together as a group for a long time will definitely count for something in the men's T20 World Cup semi-final against Afghanistan. The Proteas are unbeaten in this World Cup so far after winning their last Super 8 game by 3 wickets against the West Indies to ensure their places in the last 4. And Markram believes that they can continue their momentum into the semi-finals.
There's nothing like clear and evident that you can sort of put your finger on and be like, this is the exact difference. I think we have been together now as a group for quite some time, and that experience and that sort of environment that you're able to create in the change room and then off the field plays a big role in how things sort of look on the field. So the experience together as a team and us being together now for many years together probably is quite a big difference. I think guys have a lot of trust in each other. And are definitely willing to put everything on the line for each other. So once you've established that in a team, I think it goes a long way in what you see on the field from an actions point of view and from a effort point of view. So sort of those two things that we've managed to get over some time now have helped us and landed us in a really.
Then moving on to hockey, the South African men's hockey team will face defending Olympic champions Belgium in a warm-up friendly in Antwerp before the start of the Paris Games in July. Coach Cheslin Gia says that competing against one of the tournament favorites will definitely provide a clear measure of the team's progress in their preparations. The team will participate in a 2-match series as part of their build-up to the Olympics, and Gia is eagerly anticipating these warm-up games. In tennis, Carlos Alcaraz remains a favorite to defend his Wimbledon crown, with 7-time champion Novak Djokovic nursing a knee injury. But the tune-up tournaments have shown that there are a number of players who look to force their way into contention. Poland has never had a men's Grand Slam singles champion, but they will pin their hopes on Hubert Hurkacz after he rose to a career-high 7th in the world this week ahead of the grass-court major. His best result in a Grand Slam came when he reached the 2021 Wimbledon semis, and the big-hitting 27-year-old made a splash in Halle, where he nearly won the title for a second time. Then in motorsport, Red Bull will be wary of McLaren's Lando Norris at a home Austrian Grand Prix that Max Verstappen has dominated in the past, but this time it looks like it will be a tight battle between the two. The 11th round of the F1 season is a sprint weekend for the third time this year, with a 100-kilometer race at Spielberg's Red Red Bull's ring on Saturday before the main event on Sunday. And Norris has a point to make after taking pole in Spain last Sunday and finishing second. He was also a runner-up in Canada. Both races, the 24-year-old felt that he should have won. Then anything's off with women in sports. The Telkom Netball Challenge kicked off with teams across the country battling it out at the Hoërskool Waterkloof. The competition basically plays a big role in the development of Netball South Africa by nurturing future national stars, coaches, and university scouts. On that note, it is a wrap from my side. I'm Dumin Kapele.
So, big question. What time are you watching the game tomorrow? What time are you getting up?
For the Proteas?
Yeah. You're thinking about it. 2:30. So I've been told. And I'm debating, am I crazy or am I crazy?
You're gonna wanna watch it because it's the semis. It's a do or die kind of a match. So we have to all be up and support South Africa.
Yeah, so what's it? 8:30 Trinidad time, I understand, and 2:30 a.m. South African time. I mean, couldn't they have at least started at 4:30, man? I mean, you know, I'm just saying. But anyway, 2:30, at least we're in the semi-final. We'll talk about that later as well. More sport in an hour.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.6 FM in Tshwane. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So we've had lots of people responding to that's my point opener about, should we really call the elected MPs in Parliament or the National Assembly honourable? And then often, they just say it and then all you hear is all the time, honourable, honourable, honourable. Should we replace it by something else? What do you think? Well, Eleanor says, Ashraf, this ridiculous, you're honourable to all and sundry is absolutely ridiculous. And so inaccurate with the current crop of ministers. In fact, that's thanks, Eleanor. In fact, by the way, I think if we dropped it, we'd probably save about 20 minutes or maybe 30 minutes a day, every day in Parliament, just from the amount of less speaking that would take place. Right, let's get further thoughts on this. People are commenting, and here's one.
Hi, Ashraf. It's Harry here from Plettenberg Bay. Ashraf, with the greatest respect, I honestly don't know how you can even suggest dropping the formalities of Parliament. I mean, that is just called protocol, and it works in different scenarios. It's Harry from Plettenberg Bay.
Well, Honourable Harry, I got you. Thank you for that. Well, I get what you're saying. I love protocol generally, but what I'm suggesting is, can't we change it to another name, like servant leader, for example, which reflects more their role. So I'd like to address servant leader, Harry Johnson, for example, as opposed to the honourable. That's just what I think. And then often they criticize each other when they say honourable, and you know that, Harry. Here's another.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Makwara Shinyazo from Tembo. Ashraf, you are very spot on. You are right. There is nothing honorable about those comrades, about those people in Parliament. Most of them, or half of them, they don't deserve this title of honorable. I think it should be removed. They should rather use the title like calling themselves comrades. That's right. But using the title like honorable. No. I think we are misusing or abusing this word. Which is totally very unfair. They should rather use another title like comrade. There's nothing honorable there. Imagine calling a person who is tainted with corruption, calling him an honorable member. That does not deserve this.
Well, I tell you, I hear you, but Comrade is not going to hold either, because Comrade is now very specific to certain parties and certain ideologies. So let me get this right. Let me get this so you understand it. I'm not saying drop the honourable because there are people there who are dishonourable. Okay, that's for the courts to decide. I am saying that often the MPs call them each other by names, but they prefix when they criticize them. They first say the honourable so and so, then they criticize them. Right? And I've also heard the Speaker in Parliament say, well, the Honourable so-and-so, sit down, you are out of order. Can you see the contradiction? I am suggesting that these political leaders are our servants. They are servant leaders, and maybe it needs to reflect that rather than a title that they can gloat over. That's really my thought.
Yes. Morning, sir. I do agree with you. There's no such like honorable now, because if you look at the parliament, 70% of those individuals that are there, they are not honorable. You understand? So I do agree with you. They must just call themselves by their names only. Thank you.
Well, I'm fine with their names. I promise you that. So I said, if the person is John Smith, why can't I say, I'd like to address this issue, or I do not agree with what John Smith said. Be as informal as possible. That's a reflection of our country, which is not the same as not having a decorum in Parliament and understanding tradition. But in the tradition, you can be informal. I mean, think about President Mandela. He was the most informal of all people when he took over presidency. He didn't change his leadership one bit when he wore that Madiba-styled shirt. Absolutely. Okay, more thoughts, more calls, by the way. That should certainly get your pulses racing. 086 000 2032. WhatsApp, text, voice notes, 0614 104 107. In fact, I've also put out a poll about this same issue on my Twitter space, so follow it. Ashraf Garda and SFM Radio will repost that as well. But let's get on to another issue, and a really tragic issue. Remember the Enyobeni Tavern tragedy? Well, it's 2 years today since 21 young people at that tavern in East London, the Enyobeni Tavern, passed away. A lot has been said since then about themselves, the liquor industry, the issues of safety and negligence. Let's find out more about it with Lucky Intimani, who's the convener of the National Liquor Traders. Lucky, good chatting to you. You're live with the National Pulse. Hi.
Thank you so much, Ashraf, and good afternoon to SAFM listeners.
Good afternoon. You put out a statement, 2 years on, right? Upon reflection now, 2 years later, what do you think when you think about that day when 21 people died?
So firstly, we would like to still continue to send our heartfelt condolences to those families, because as one will imagine, they haven't found closure, out of the tragic that happened, which we believe was wholly preventable. And on record as saying that, the owners of that establishment should have been charged with murder, because their actions, we believe, cost those young souls to lose their lives. But coming back to your question, Ashraf, what we have noticed in the past 2 years is that there has been obviously a major emphasis on issues of underage drinking, but there is a reality on the ground which differs to what the interest is, and this is that we have youngsters that continue to have access to alcohol in our country, and this doesn't only happen in taverns, but it also happens in established places where these youngsters somehow manage to get alcohol even in shopping centers. That continues to worry us, and we feel that, I think enough talk now. We need to find a way that we're able to, to stem this out and find a solution that will ensure that, we go back into a country where, alcohol is only reserved for those that are of age.
Well, I think you're right, and therefore, you made the point in the statement that the incident that happened, the tragedy at the Enyobeni Tavern, was wholly preventable. That's your words, right? So if it was wholly preventable, what has happened since then in terms of ensuring that this type of thing never happens again, like ever?
So with regards to the Eastern Cape specifically, we'd like to commend the Eastern Cape Liquor Board for having run programs in various schools in that province, but also within liquor trader environment where education has taken place. And in fact, in the month of July, in a week from now, we are running 4 programs in that province, partnering with Heineken Beverages and the Liquor Board, talking to liquor traders to ensure that they comply with the license regulations. We feel that even though the Human Rights Commission report points a finger at the Liquor Board as well as the social government and the police, we feel that liquor traders ought to take responsibility for what occurred there, because this incident happened within the premises of an outlet and not at the premises of police. But we are saying that there is an opportunity that we come together and we take ownership of this issue. The community also needs to come together so that we can find a solution that best benefits the society. I think pointing fingers has shown us in the past 2 years that it doesn't generate the results we want, but we need to sit together and find a solution that will address the issue of alcohol abuse in the country, because I think up to now we've done so well as a country to sweep this issue under the carpet. But we need to own up that we as a country might actually have a drinking problem.
Well, I mean, it's clear that there is a drinking problem because the issue of alcohol, even amongst adults, and I'm not saying people who die, this is a case of people dying, but even just people who are involved in rampant alcohol abuse and the impact that it has on their lives. I mean, that is there. And the reality is it's considered the norm in society, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly. And I think also we need to be able to be upfront and also address the societal ills that give rise to people finding solace in alcohol, and we need to understand that alcohol is not a solution. When you run into the bottle, not all the problems are going to be solved. In fact, not any problem is going to be solved by embarking on the binge drinking or even drinking alcohol in an irresponsible manner. But we feel that as the alcohol industry, certainly as covered, we do not have all the solutions to address this issue. Hence, we are saying that we probably need maybe to have some conversation of some sort, with other stakeholders, community leaders, government, NGOs, so that we can find a solution. As it stands, as a country, we do not have a strategy to combat.
So why don't we have a strategy? I mean, 2 years down the line, why don't we have it? Because, I mean, there's two levels. One is regarding that tavern in particular, and maybe the checks and balances to ensure that the underage people cannot consume alcohol. That's the first part. The second part is just the issues of the harm that alcohol causes in terms of delinquency around the country for adults only, so as well as young people. So if that's the case, considering the many examples we've known already, why then have we not had a plan? If not before, then especially in the last 2 years.
And the answer is simple, Ashraf. So in South Africa, because we've got 9 different provinces, we've got 9 different liquor laws, which is nonsensical. Why are we having 9 different laws in one country? So, for example, Mpumalanga has got its own law with its own regulations. Gauteng has got its own law with its own regulations. So these do not talk to each other. So hence it's difficult to have a coherent strategy to address the issue of alcohol abuse, which should be common across the country. So we feel that one liquor board is probably what will get us to have a coherent strategy that will address this matter once and for all. But if we continue to have different liquor laws across all the 9 provinces, it means we won't be able to come together to address this matter that affects all South Africans, and it's not just geared towards the specific province.
And I mean, the last thing, there's also the business of liquor sales, and I mean, that's where you are, the National Liquor Traders Association, right? Maybe therefore the last thing, if there's one lesson that you've learned from the last 2 years that you would pass on to the national liquor traders, what would that be that has not yet been implemented?
I think it's the self-regulation aspect of it, where liquor traders, by virtue of them having a gotten license, means that they trade at the pledge of their communities. We need to play an active role in ensure that the people that come into our place are able to find a safe environment to consume alcohol. And by saying that in the extension, meaning that we also are able to do checks and balances that people that come into our place are of the right legal age. Even if it means that we ask for IDs, we need to be able to be proactive so we can protect our community and society at large.
Okay, that's where we're going to leave it. Lucky Intimani, the convener of the National Liquor Traders, and central to all of this is the fact that 21 young people at the Enyobeni Tavern passed away, and that's the reality. Their lives ended. The lives of their families have changed, and they've changed forever. Right, lots of people commenting. By the way, there's this poll that I've done on Twitter, on the X platform. Certainly check it out. And then someone saying nothing honourable about calling people honourable. Another one saying they should replace honourable with another word that I'm not even going to use. Not at all, right? And there's more, right? Let's see. I'll tell you what we're going to do. There's a couple more WhatsApp voice notes that I want to play. Here's one of them. In fact, we'll do it in a moment.
At Specsavers, we're committed to offering affordable and professional eye care. That's why we're offering 1,500 Rand worth of savings with our winter promotion. Get a free frame up to the value of 1,500 Rand, or use the 1,500 Rand on one of our leading lens enhancements. To qualify, simply purchase a comprehensive eye examination and prescription frame and lenses. Book online or call your nearest store today. Specsavers, for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
Set in a gleaming new high-tech trauma center that deals with only the most serious cases, an emergency medical team must battle through the crucial first hour of care to save lives that hang in the balance. Each distinctive case is told with a thrilling intensity and nail-biting urgency as the team work on the very edge of the medically possible. This is a medical drama like no other. This is Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime. Only on S3. Open up.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
So Jack Pagati tweeting saying, we should continue to call them honourable, otherwise it will be a jungle. Definitely they are not perfect, but they aren't thugs either. But I think, Jack, here's the point. Nobody's saying because they thugs you can't call them honourable. I'm suggesting only they're great human beings. I'm just wondering whether there's too much elevation of their role in Parliament, because I'm suggesting they should be servant leaders. So why elevate them to a level of honourable? If the person's a president, call them the president or the speaker, that's fine. But or even MP, for example, because that's really their title, MP, members of parliament, isn't it? Why the honourable? That's just what I'm saying, but maybe you can convince me otherwise. There's a big issue around a Pretoria college in relation to allegations of racism, discrimination and unfair labour practice that should cause serious concern for you. The provincial authorities and the South African Human Rights Commission are investigating this issue. Let's get some more background on this. We're joined by Vicky Abram, who's the editor of the diary series of Deaf People. Vicky, thank you for joining us here on the National Pulse. Hi. Vicky, do I have you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I certainly can. Thank you for your time, right? So I understand that, and I'm looking at the headline of this piece that I got in front of me. It says, "We eat food with ants." And that's what the students are saying. Tell me more.
Okay, we started doing investigations on the college a few weeks ago. We had been alerted because we started a publication for the deaf community. So we were alerted by one of the deaf community members because the students were not happy about the treatment at the college. So they took it to social media. So they posted a video of themselves, talking about the issues that are happening there, how they are insulted by their white superiors, and also the fact that allegations that they are made to sit on the grass when it's wet. Like even during rainy season, even this month, you can see how cold it is. They allege that they are not allowed to sit on chairs. They are not allowed to warm up their food, so they eat cold food. And some of them, they are pregnant, and so those are the issues that they're complaining about. So the issues about the ants was that they don't have lockers where they can place their bags and their food, so they have to place them on the grass or also on the ground. So now they are less that their food will be, infested with ants, and they will have to eat them. These are deaf students, and some of them are students with hearing students with different disabilities. So those are the allegations that they were, that they brought forth. And others were talking about issues of being made to collect feces, dog feces, and cleaning that. And these are electrical students. And other allegations were that, if you clean a car, the boss's car, not the boss's car per se, the cars at the college, they have to clean that maybe 6 times. And, when we asked the college owner, and he says that, they have to make sure that it's done correctly. And they are alleged that they are being shown a middle finger, and so they are not happy about the situation there. And one of the students came out and said that when she was pregnant, she had to go into labor prematurely because of the treatment at the college, and she was made to dig the ground, even though she was just she hadn't healed from C-section. So those are the issues that that the students are alleged that are happening at the school, whereby they have to go there and allegedly build the owner's property, but that's not what they went there for. They went there for training. Yeah.
Okay, now, I mean, let's go back to the issue of the ants. I mean, you're saying sort of they're sitting on the grass so the ants get there, but there's one thing between, an ant invading food, which can happen. There's another story being forced to eat it. So you're saying they actually being forced to. That means the supervisor is clear that they can see the ant as well, and they're saying continue eating it. I mean, I just find this bizarre.
I think if you read our stories, there's no way in our story where we say that they are forced to eat ants. Yeah. They are basically saying that because the school has not provided them with the proper facilities where they can place their, their lunch boxes and all that. Because you can imagine, when you go to school, you will have a desk where you can put where you can put your luggage, where you can put your food, or where you can put your bag as well, right? But then with these students, what they allege is that there's no way they can place their food, and they just have to place them on the ground. So they have to take it like that. But now the issues that they are complaining about is that the white students, there's a difference. With the black students, that's what is happening. That's what they're alleging, that they can sit on the chairs. They can sit, they're allowed to sit on the chairs, but with them, they are not allowed to. They can place their bags somewhere else, but with them, they are not allowed to. So that's where the problem is.
Okay, so I understand there's an investigation from the Human Rights Commission as well. What has the college said?
The college, what they're saying is that, the students work on site, so they are not allowed to, if they work on site, they cannot place their bags there, on a table or sit on the chairs, because those chairs are apparently for students who are paying. But the students are saying something different, because what we had to do, we interviewed the deaf students, and we also had to interview, hearing students. Even the facilitators at the school, they have said these things. Like, for instance, they say the black students the hearing black students are not allowed to speak in, their home language. But then with white students, they can speak in Afrikaans. But then with them, it's a problem. So those are the issues whereby, they will allegedly have to go home after hours. And you remember that, in our story we mentioned that some of the students are partially blind. We call them deaf, partially blind, whereby you can walk you cannot be in the dark after 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock, or maybe even in the class. So now they feel that their lives are being, endangered. Okay. So those are the issues that are taken, because they're saying there's preferential treatment. When it comes to the white students, they are not treated like that. We're going
to have to leave it at that. I'll tell you what, it's a very disturbing story, and I'm sure it's something that we need to follow up and see what comes out of it, particularly the fact that the Human Rights Commission itself investigating the college itself. Vicky Abram, the editor of the Diary series of Deaf People, appreciate your time. Let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock with Majupi.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. The top stories at 4 o'clock. Former Free State Premier is appointed Speaker, and water supply interruptions for Limpopo. A very good afternoon. Former Free State Premier Mxolisi Tukwana has been appointed Speaker of the Provincial Legislature. He was nominated unopposed in the special sitting chaired by Free State High Court Judge Kagni Musi. The sitting was called after Ntombizanele Sifuba resigned and was subsequently appointed as the MEC for Sports, Arts and Culture. Nolitan Dungani has been appointed as the Deputy Speaker. The Ahmed Kathrada Foundation says it is worrying that people who have been impeached or are on trial are being sworn in as members of parliament. This follows the swearing in of corruption-accused former Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Zizi Kodwa and impeached Western Cape High Court Judge President John Hlophe. Kodwa was sworn in yesterday along with MK party members who missed the first sitting of parliament last week. He resigned from his position earlier this month following his corruption scandal. The foundation's Nishan Bolton says this is a cynical move by the ANC.
Cynical in the sense that I think pre-elections, the ANC would have weighed up the optics of this and said, well, will this win us votes or will it lose us votes? and in an effort to improve its image at the last minute, he steps down, he resigns, and creates the impression that that would continue post-elections. Post-elections, the ANC then weighs up and says, well, it doesn't really matter too much. We've got 40%, and we can withstand whatever public pressure comes.
The Chief Whip of Parliament's NCOP, Kenny Muyemam, says it is important to note that the Council is independent of the National Assembly. The NCOP's Rules Committee met this morning to elect various structures. It also agreed on the different clusters in which the NCOP will do oversight over the different government departments. Muyemang told members that the interest of provinces must always be at the forefront of their work.
You need to ascertain as to whether other provincial interests are they part of the APPs, are they part of the budgets. It's important to make a distinction that we are not the complicator of the National Assembly. Ours is to look particularly in terms of what is on the plate for our provinces.
Residents in Polokwane and surrounding areas in Limpopo will be without water supply for 2 days. The affected areas include Sekhwashi, Mankweng, Seshego, and the Polokwane CBD. This is due to refurbishment at the Ebenezer water plant in Tsanin. Polokwane municipal spokesperson T. Basilala says they will provide water tankers to the affected areas.
Operations at the Ebenezer plant will be affected between 6 and 12 o'clock today and the same time tomorrow. So it's worth noting that when water supply is interrupted for more than 5 hours, it may take additional time for water to reach all areas after restoration. However, our teams are actively monitoring the situation and will provide temporary relief to affected customers as needed.
And security has been deployed to Kenya's High Commission in Uganda following an attack by Kenyan protesters on Uganda House in Nairobi. Protesters vandalized and set part of the building ablaze yesterday amidst wider Kenyan protests over tax hikes. Leon Senyange reports.
Authorities say there's been no threat at the embassy so far, but nothing is being left to chance. In Kenya's capital Nairobi, protesters targeted key government buildings, including the Uganda House, in Tuesday's clashes. Uganda's foreign ministry says there were no fatalities in the attack and has condemned the acts. Notices warning nationals to stay away from demonstrations have been issued by consular authorities, including the US and French embassies, as well as the UK Foreign Office. Kenyan protesters have, however, vowed to keep up their demonstration against planned tax increases by the Kenyan government. Leon Senyange, SABC News, Kampala, Uganda.
The top story at 4 o'clock, former Free State Premier Mkolisi Tukwana has been appointed Speaker of the Provincial Legislature. For SAFM News, Coming
up in your sports, the South Makram looks ahead to the semi-final against Afghanistan, and undisputed heavyweight world champion Usyk vacates IBF belt. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The N1 southbound in Midrand has a crash reported just before Buccleuch Interchange. All lanes are open. And the R21 northbound in Kempton Park has ramp closure reported with absolutely no access to Voortrekker Road due to a truck crash. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a bus crash reported at Amanzimtoti causing heavy delays. The N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The N3 eastbound has a stationary truck after Ashburton exit. The N3 eastbound in Cato Ridge has a crash reported after Camperdown exit. Heavy traffic reported in the Umbilio area, so you're asked to expect delays, and Bayard Road has truck congestion to and from the harbour area. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is slow moving towards Hospital Bend. The M3 Philip Hosana Drive outbound is slow moving towards Hospital Bend. The N7 Jakes Hadwell Drive southbound is queuing towards Voortrekker Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Santi Africa! The great Olympians are heading to Paris with courage, determination, and eagerness to raise the flag of Africa Zonga very high. Let's Let's rally behind the well-decorated Team SA. Athletics, swimming, canoeing, climbing, gymnastics, and surfing. The winning mentality of Africa Chipembe will prevail. Hashtag the global battle of great athletes. Experience the Olympic Games Paris 2024 from Friday 26 July until Sunday 11 August. Live on SABC TV channels and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. SABC Sport, proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024. For the love of the game. Experience Food Lovers Market's unbeatable value with a 7 kg potato pocket, a butternut pocket, an orange pocket, a 3 kg onion bag and a 3 kg carrot bag for 199 Rand per combo. A 1 kg pack of Food Lovers lean beef mince for 79.99 and 2 1-litre bottles of Fresco Liva blended olive oil for 100 Rand. Valid until this Sunday at Food Lovers Market. It's in the experience.
Right, there's just something that I think you should just pay attention to. Tourism entrepreneurs in particular, right? Your success starts here. The Tourism Equity Fund is your gateway to growth, whether you're looking to expand or innovate. Call SEFA, that's SEFA, at 012-748-9600 or visit the website SEFA, that's www.sefa as in sefa.org.za. SEFA is a registered credit provider. Terms and conditions apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
You may be aware that regarding the big protests in Kenya, people have died, but the very important one is that President Ruto has now withdrawn that proposed finance bill that sparked off these massive protests in Kenya. We'll touch on that story hopefully pretty shortly. Comments on Honorable Ashraf? I agree with you. Like my lord in court, my lawyers, I really don't understand that. As for the Parley's honorable title, doesn't suit them. It should be changed to Sir, Madam, or Mr. or Mrs. Okay, and there's many others commenting about that, right? Well, I'll tell you what, there's another one around that issue. Ashraf, it's the joint rules of parliament, rules of debate, reference to members by name. No member shall refer to any other members by his or her name or names only. So this is fitting for Parliament's code of conduct. Now, I hear that. You're giving me what the reality is. I must tell you, I spoke to this newly appointed Deputy Speaker of Parliament a week ago. And she said, it's custom. Now, all I'm saying to you is I'm not saying it's not what's agreed upon. What I'm questioning is whether it should be agreed upon or whether we should actually have that change, because I just don't see the point of every second word we talk about in Parliament is just honourable this, honourable that, and then we continue being critical of each other when we use the word honourable as the prefix anyway. I want to just check out, in fact, if we do have the guests with me. We're going to move on to, so let's get to this issue. There's been a big water problem around the country, certainly in one of the issues, and I raised it earlier about what for me moves the National Pulse today. It's that, in my area, in the northern suburbs of Joburg, 36 hours no water. There's nothing. Zero. But we know it's not just my communities, there's many others all around the country. Now, many municipalities have embarked on maintenance programs. We've certainly chatted about that the other day. I think we chatted to Dr. Fidel Adamov about it. And they've done it because municipal water and sanitation services have been in an undesirable state for quite a while. So there's a need for maintenance, right? There is a general consensus that things are not getting any better. Well, SALGA has been concerned about the deteriorating water infrastructure in South Africa. So let's get the thoughts of Lubabalo Luyamba, who's SALGA's water and sanitation specialist. Good chatting to you, and thanks for joining us on the National Pulse. Hi.
Good afternoon, sir, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you
for having me.
Thank you. It's interesting to bring up the issue of water. It's topmost of my mind as per my intro. But I mean, there's really two parts to it. One is the need for maintenance, which causes a problem. But the other is if you don't do the maintenance, you have huge problems. So let's start with this. What do you think is the state of our water? Not in terms of delivery, but in terms of the health of the water.
In terms of the quality, you mean?
Yeah, one is the ability, in terms of consumption, where we can it's delivered to our homes where we need it, but the other is the actual quality of the water in terms of it being safe to drink.
Well, I think while there are challenges, what we do know for a fact is that most, if not a very large percentage of our water is safe for consumption. In the country, we have a national standard. It's called SANS 241. With regard to that, most municipalities have compliant, are supplying communities with water that is safe to drink. That's not to say that it will always stay that way. We need to be vigilant and we need to continuously improve. But at this specific point in time, our water is safe for consumption. You think about the incidents we've had of cholera and the like. Those are occurring, but I think those are more outliers than the norm. Our water is generally safe to drink, and one can always check it on the Department of Water and Sanitation's website, where all of the sampled points are basically reflected, and municipalities submit those samples to the department, or rather on the department website, and you can always check in your community if your water is safe to consume.
So, I mean, that's the one part about safe to consume. The other is the issue of maintenance. I mean, where do you stand with regard to maintenance or lack of maintenance in the past?
Maintenance, we do have a serious problem. We know we have a serious problem when we look at the amount of leaks that are happening in the system. So our non-revenue water is very high, and a large part of it is due to water that is being lost in the system. Another one is a shared frustration, also being a Joburg resident, of the outages, how long they are and how frequently they occur. That tells us the infrastructure that we have in the ground is indeed old and is due for replacement or upgrade, and that has not always happened. But it costs money, and sometimes the money is not there.
So, okay, costs money, the money is not there, which again talks about huge service delivery breakdowns, right? And then when there's maintenance being effected, like it is now in parts of Johannesburg, for example, then you have massive breakdowns of long periods when there's no water, which is almost unlivable. It's just crazy, isn't it? How do we get that balance right?
I think we have an investment backlog or a maintenance backlog. It's like your car. If you do not repair or service it on time, the cost to do it later is only going to increase. So I think we need to, while trying to eradicate backlogs, put more emphasis on repairing and looking after our infrastructure so that the level of service that our communities receive improves. So I think it starts at budgeting, if I'm to be honest. We need to be critical at the point of budgeting to say how much is going towards the repair and maintenance of our water infrastructure, and is the amount that is going towards it adequate? If it's not adequate, what are we going to do about it? So I think a large part of it is about us asking the right questions, which collectively as society we've perhaps not done.
So where does SALGA fit in on this? I mean, in terms of, you've raised awareness, we're talking to you about it, but what more can you do?
Well, we have several programs. So as SALGA, we have what is called the Water Services Collaborative Program, which seeks to support the 144 Water Services Authority in the country. We are doing work in the area of capacity building from a skills perspective. We provide direct support. We participate in identification of research projects and piloting those projects. We're also involved in the area of strategic profiling. And a big project that we are pushing in partnership with National Department of Water and Sanitation and DBSA is the National Water Partnerships Office, which has a program that is specifically looking at improving the reliability of water and sanitation by increasing investment from partly sourced from the private sector, but also better utilizing the limited funds that the state has. So we run various programs at various levels that seek to solve the problem in a sustainable manner.
Just the last thing, I mean, would you say that the water problems we have, A, in terms of its availability, and B, in terms of its purity, potentially is even a bigger problem than load shedding?
I do not want to be alarmist. I think at this point in time, no. But there is potential for us to get there. And the challenge we have with water is that you can't, in inverted commas, go off-grid. We're not going to have IPPs for water because it's a finite resource, and South Africa is a water-scarce country. So what I would say is we don't want to find out, because at the point at which we find out, it will definitely be too late. So we sort of need to do the best that we can from the perspective of availability to use the limited water that we have responsibly and ensure that we don't get into a situation where we have a shortage.
Okay, let's leave it at that. I think lots of questions have come out of that conversation. Appreciate your time. Salga's water and sanitation specialist. That's Lubabalo Luyaba. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. Let's get to some other thoughts that we've had. I think we should have Isaac. I'm going to just double check. In fact, we have Isaac in Joburg. Isaac, hi.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Isaac, how are you?
Yeah, good indeed. Go ahead, Isaac. What's your point?
I like the point you put about the honourable thing. I think if we start calling them something else, or if we start calling them our servants, that will humble them and make them understand that because they are our leaders doesn't mean they are superior to that point. They must understand that they are working for us and representing us.
Well, I agree. I wouldn't even say working. I think they are the ultimate servant leader. That's what they should be. They are appointed as leaders to best serve the country, and that's exactly what they wanted to do in the first place. So I get your point. Thanks for that, Isaac. You agree with me. If anybody else has better ideas, do you agree with the word honourable and what it means? But if you don't agree, what would you replace it with? I mean, that's really what it is, isn't it? Okay, let's get another thought. We have Nkunzi in Pietermaritzburg. Welcome, and what's your point?
Yeah, Ashraf, I think we must be careful. Earlier on, I was listening to Sakina during a midday show, and they talked about an IEC official appearing in Pietermaritzburg magistrate in terms of on the charges of vote rigging or something like that. But there is no evidence as yet because that official has not been formally charged. He was just summoned to appear at the magistrate regarding the irregularities and the ballot box that were found in his home, something like that. But what I'm cautioning us, especially the media, is not to fall into the trap where they will give the MK party an impetus on their spurious allegations that the elections were rigged. You know, so to jump into this and say and cover stories like that, it gives the allegations legitimacy and credence.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, first of all, if there's allegations, we have to cover the story, which we've done. I don't know if any media house publicly endorses a position to say, yes, we know there is vote rigging. Asking questions doesn't mean you agree with someone.
Yeah, no, I get that. But, I mean, the journalist that covered that story from the SAPC, she was even told by the MK members that this guy did this and that, and that guy didn't have any chance to defend or to comment about what really happened. That is going to happen in court. But for journalists to always find out answers from other political parties, knowing very well that they will be subjective in terms of what they say, I think in my view it's not correct.
Okay, got that, and you certainly have made your point. The fact is we certainly do cover a range of issues, and yes, and often, very, very often, we don't even agree with the people we speak to, but our job is to get them on air because we believe there's currency in what they're saying. There's an audience that wants to hear them, and then we talk to them, and then we challenge them, for example, and sometimes you let it go to say, well, that's your opinion, and then we move on. There's a couple of comments on the honourable issue. Clearly, there's lots of people who comment about that.
Ashraf and fellow SFM listeners, good afternoon. My name is Tulani Nzima in Croydon. Ashraf, I do not mind the politicians being called honourable. They are honourable among themselves, probably, or they're supposed to be. However, what I always have a problem with is a fellow, call it man or sister, calling another one my lord, your lord, and my lady, and all of that in a court of law filled or infested with highly erudite people. For me, it just never makes sense. I think I'll skip law for only that I would have to address somebody as my lord.
In 400 meters.
Okay, well, there you are. You need to take your turn, so we get that when you make that message. There's a couple more on the honourable story.
Order.
Honorable Ashraf Garda, you are out of order. Remember, there is no honor among thieves.
There we are, Honourable. I really feel like I'm in Parliament now. I've just been an elected member of Parliament. Okay, one day honour in Parliament. Here's another.
Hey, Mr. Ashraf. No. It's very clear for me. Some of them, they really don't deserve to be called honourable. Really, they don't. Sqenqa Shibas from Kwakwataza in KZN.
Okay, there we are. But I mean, just to make my point, it's not about whether they deserve it. So I'm not casting an aspersion on any individual's character. That's another whole conversation completely. I'm saying, all things being equal, there's this over-fussing about calling people honourable. Every second word in Parliament is like honourable this, honourable that. Then they're also critical of them, and they still say the honourable as a prefix before they say that.
Ashraf and the rest of the listeners, I concur with you. These parliamentarians, they should be stopped calling honourable. There's nothing honourable about them, especially the ANC ones. Those people are thieves. We should call them by their names, not even call them by their surnames. We should call them by their names. Thank you.
Okay, I got that, but I mean, when you say those people are thieves, you're talking about an entire grouping of people, and I can't agree with that. I'm just saying to you, there are people in Parliament of the different parties, and I think we all know who they are. There are lots of allegations about many of them. If they're convicted, well, then you can say that person's been convicted on that basis, right? But there are people, there are allegations, but this is not about that. This is really about just understanding the overpraise in terms of honor and what it gives them. But or the other, am I wrong? I mean, should the fact that they are elected now, should they be elevated to the status of being called the honourable? Because that's how we reflect their status in our lives. Like how you would say, Mr. or even the President, for example, is it that they now deserve that? And let me then keep quiet and say, hold it, we will always do that. Well, I don't agree, but I'd like to get your thoughts. And Kabela in the Eastern Cape wants to comment about an issue we spoke about earlier on, the Enyobeni Tavern issue 2 years later. Right, good chatting to you. Hello.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yes, thank you for calling.
See, for us to address the issues of Enyobeni, we must first be very truthful as to what killed those kids. It's not teenage drinking and all of that. My friend, we've been subject to teenage drinking since our upbringing, and it never killed anybody. I'm not saying it's acceptable, but that's the truth. What the Department of Health did there was actually to suppress the real killer behind those kids. And that is the injustice against those parents. So I'm saying we must actually find out what was the real cause of the death of those kids, and that had nothing to do with alcohol and over drinking. I'm suspecting it might have been counterfeit alcohol that was used by that tavern, even if it is not. But the real truth of what was the killer behind those kids is not alcohol. It's not teenage drinking. We must be honest about that.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I hear you. Thank you for that. I hear that. As you said, whether that's something that's being doctored drink, but the overall issue of younger people, even underage people, wanting to drink alcohol in pubs or taverns, I mean, that alone is a huge issue as well. And to be honest, it has never been fully addressed. So thanks for that call. Let's get another one on the issue of honourable. Lungisani in Durban, hello.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. How are you?
The Honourable Lungisani. Thanks for calling in, right?
No, thanks. I received. So I just want to make it clear or maybe a point. I say they ought to be called with these names because when they are there, they are representing the number of the group of people in South Africa. Just like in the church, the pastor would be given that certain respect. So it doesn't matter whether what they've done in the past or what they really doing in the current times. So the name calling the honorable one, the highest or the Lord, their names, they deserve them because they represent us. Just like in the Bible, we were told that they were kings, they were lords. Those people ought to be called with certain names. We can't just refer to them by their names or surnames.
Okay, so look,
I don't know if it makes sense to you. Yeah.
Well, you make sense to me. I agree partially and not in another way. Lungisani, thanks for that call. I mean, here's my thoughts on that. I mean, so I get your point about like when you say a pastor. So when people have in a certain position, they get a certain title. You would say pastor, you could say rabbi, you could say an imam or a sheikh or a maulana, depending on what is your faith or the head of a church or a mandir in the Hindu faith. I mean, many of that. I understand that part of it, right? And in that case, yes, if a person's like a coach, you don't call the coach a player. You call the coach a coach because they've been put into that position. So I get that. What I am saying specifically, not elsewhere, I'm talking about Parliament. In Parliament, particularly, we've had a long period where there's been an absence of service delivery, and there's been a big call, certainly in this election we've just had, that service delivery must be upped, and those who are elected, remember they are elected by us, so they didn't just earn it on the basis of qualification, they're elected by us to serve the country. So what I'm saying to you, give them a title if you want to give them a title, but should the title reflect more of their mission rather than giving them a title that suggests a lofty position. So I'm just saying, because I can't think of anything better, I'm saying servant leader for now. Why can't we call them servant leader whoever instead of honorable? That's what I'm saying, because they must remember they really do serve the people. Right, talking about serving, there's a cricket game on tomorrow morning, 2:30, and our cricketers represent and serve the country there.
Ashraf, the South African cricket team has reached the semi-finals the first time in many, many years. But us poor South Africans who do not have TV will not be able to watch it at all. It'll only be the rich people with DSTV. Mike, East London.
Mike, I got that. Like, when you have options, look, I can't get into the whole DSTV debated on cable television. It's an issue around the world, okay? What I can tell you is, you have options if you can. I think you can watch it on streaming live if you have that, okay? I know there's a cost for that as well. And if you can't physically watch it, you can even follow it on a website. You can follow it ball by ball, if not commentary, but text commentary. Those things are available. But it does mean you have to wake up at 2:30 in the morning. I get that. I certainly hope the team wins. Whoever would have thought we'd be playing Afghanistan in the semi-final of a cricket World Cup. Can you believe it? And the Australians, a team that beats us so often, they're already knocked out of the World Cup. By who? By Afghanistan. News headlines for 30 years, Madupi.
Garda, in your headlines this hour, Kenya's President William Ruto has rejected and withdrawn its proposed finance bill after protests against the controversial tax bill started last week. Former Steinhoff CFO Andries Benjamin Legrandzi has been released on 150,000 rand bail, and former Free State Premier Mxolisi Dukwana has been appointed Speaker of the Provincial Legislature. And those are your headlines. A full news update at 5.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 southbound in Alexandra, an earlier stationary vehicle just before London Road exit has been cleared, but traffic is still slow moving. Bryanston Drive eastbound in Morningside has a crash at Coleraine Drive. Pretoria Avenue in Sandton is closed between Catherine Street and Rivonia Road due to work being done by Johannesburg Water, and the N1 southbound in Midrand has a crash before Buccleuch interchange. All lanes are open. In KZN, the N2 southbound, a bus crash reported at Amanzimtoti. The N2 southbound is slow moving towards Spaghetti Junction, and Maiden Road has roadworks with traffic restrictions in the Maiden Wharf area. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound is slow moving towards Krombum Road exit. The N1 outbound is slow moving on the off-ramp to Marine Drive due to a crash on the opposite carriageway. Main Road outbound in Observatory is slow moving at Anzia Road, and Victoria Road outbound is slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Well, let's get to sport now. Where is the Proteas play tomorrow morning. There's Bafana playing tonight. Goodness, man. So many things happening. Go ahead to me.
Absolutely. Bafana is playing tonight, and we hear from assistant coach Helman Kalele saying that he's eager to explore with the latest national team players picked for the COSAFA Cup. With Hugo Bruce excused from overseeing regional tournaments, Mkalele has been tasked with taking charge, and all eyes will be on the 23-man squad selected. And here he speaks on the criteria used to decide on who will feature in Gqeberha.
We as a technical team, we are also excited with the type of players that we have brought in. As we all know that initially we released 51 or 52 players. The list of 52 players. That shows that we have massive talent in the country. But unfortunately, some of the players, they couldn't make it because of many reasons, tactical reasons and other, team factor reasons.
South Africa play Mozambique at 6 p.m. Meanwhile, Kaizer Chiefs have triggered the option on midfielder George Matlow's contract to keep him at Naturena for another season. Chiefs are cleaning house in preparation for the arrival of new coach Nasruddin Nabi, who has already sent the rest of his technical staff to assess players and make transfer recommendations to the club. The Soweto Giants have also reportedly informed senior figures, including Sfiso Hlanti, Keegan Dolly and Siyathemba Setebe, that their contract would not be renewed beyond its expiry on the 30th of June. Then in cricket, we know how South Africa have had relatively low-scoring matches in this T20 World Cup, with their highest total at 194 runs against the USA, where they won by 18. However, Captain Eddie Markram says that having had these very close games mean that they can perform under pressure, which is what they aim to do once again tomorrow.
You can take a lot of sort of calmness from the fact that this competition, we've been involved in quite a few close games, so it's not going to feel like anything new to us. That being said, also we take a lot of belief knowing that we might not be in ideal positions, but we've been able to get the job done, and I think that offers you quite a bit of calmness as well as a team. So keeping those things close to us, I would say, and you always look at the way you want to play the game, and if you operating in that space, I think you take calmness, you take confidence in your decision making, and hopefully those few things can help us.
Well, today's 30 days to go to the Paris Olympics, and organizers of the Games says that all preparation work is on track while workers put on final touches on stadiums. Test events were also carried out at the iconic Stade de France, especially on the Purple Athletics track, that track involving the manual layering of more than 1,000 rolls of material should be completed on the 1st of June. Then finally in boxing, Alexander Usyk has confirmed that he will vacate his IBF title just weeks after he became undisputed world heavyweight champion. The Ukrainian became the first heavyweight to hold the IBF, WBO, WBA and WBC belts when he beat Tyson Fury in a split decision in Saudi Arabia last month. With Usyk now contracted to a rematch with Britain's Fury, he is not in a position to defend the IBF crown against interim champion and mandatory challenger Daniel Dubious. That means that Daniel expected all British fight against Anthony Joshua at Wembley in September could now be the vacant title. With that said, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour for SAFM Sport. I am Dumin Kape.
So wait, we must not forget, did you say 30 days to the Olympics?
30 days.
Did you get your visa?
No.
Did you get your flight ticket?
Not yet.
Did you get time off? Oh, you're going to work there? You're going on holiday? I have so many questions.
We're still waiting for someone to just say,
we need to get you. You don't want to go on a holiday. Would you go on a holiday, or would you want to work there?
To work.
Right.
I'd love to work.
You need to, and I completely concur. We need to get you to sponsored crossings to the Olympic Games, or rather from the Olympic Games to the national pulse, because that pulse rate will be boiling away.
I'll be doing crossings from that side.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that. Yeah. If you visualize it, it'll happen. More sports in an hour.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Let's get to the markets now with Makwe Masilela, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. It's always good chatting to you, Makwe. Let's get to an update on local and global markets.
Afternoon to you, Ashraf, and to the listeners. Ashraf, some market participants see the outlook for China's exports improving, then helping growth, even as consumer spending slows. And the guys expect China's economy to grow by 5%. That is up from 4.9% predicted earlier, and that's also in line with government's target. Remember, the IMF also upgraded their forecast to 5%. That is from 4.6%. And investors are likely to keep piling into stocks at any sign of any pullback as central banks, especially the US central bank, edges closer to reducing interest rates. And the European Central Bank officials said today that 2 more rate cuts this year may be reasonable. That managed to help sentiment to some extent. Meanwhile, some traders are betting on big reductions at the Fed, and markets are still sensitive to the global monetary policy outlook, and a jump in consumer inflation in Australia overnight unfortunately did little to soothe our nerves, and the Japanese yen fell to the weakest level since 1986 because of that vast gap between the interest rates in Japan and the US, and that itself has been putting pressure on the yen despite challenges to try to contain the slide. And oil prices bounce back as traders hope that the US inventory data will point to stronger summer fuel demand. Also, expectations that the oil market will tighten because of the escalating tension in the Middle East. Brent crude is up 0.6% at $84 a barrel, and the yellow metal fell to their lowest in almost 2 weeks as the dollar firmed, while investors awaited inflation data for the latest clues when it comes to the Fed's rate prospects. We see gold is down 0.9% at $2,297, but platinum is up 1.5% at $998. The Dow is down 0.3%, S&P is down 0.1%, just like the DAX. Fruity down 0.3%, CAC down 0.7%, and the GS is down 0.2%. That's after closing down 0.8% yesterday. But our resources are up 0.5%, but financials are down 0.6%, industrials down 0.4%, and the rand is kind of flat, 18.23 to the US dollar, 23.05 to the pound, and 19.47 to the euro.
Right, well, that's it for today then. Makwe, thanks for your time as always.
Pleasure.
And we will chat sometime tomorrow. In fact, Makwe works so hard. Tell you what, listen to him on radio, read an article about him, switch on TV1, TV2, different channels, wherever he's on. I see him all the time talking about many, many things. Thanks for that, Makwe. Right, more to come. In fact, I'll take some of your calls as well on any of the issues that, in your opinion, moves the national pulse today. The word honourable, by the way, is certainly one of them, but I mean, not just that. I mean, you could talk about anything. One of the biggest issues certainly is the goings on in Kenya. We discussed it yesterday about protests, 2 days in a row, in fact, and there's been changes, and we're going to talk about that shortly.
Amidst misinformation and disinformation, where can we find reliable news? Turn to radio, your trusted source for truthful updates. For over 3 decades, we've upheld integrity as a signatory to the BCCSA Broadcasting Code of Conduct. Count on us for news you can trust. Say no to fake news. Radio, keeping it real since day one. A message from the National Association of Broadcasters. Tune in, trust, and stay informed.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, let's get some calls, and we ask you the questions. What for you moves the national pulse today? Lenyas Mashile, we spoke the other day about other things. Let's talk about the Honourable. So the Honourable Mashile, hi.
Yes, Ashraf, I think I've been honourable for 15 years in National Parliament.
Yeah, I know.
and definitely that we should be asking ourselves is that those members in parliament, are they not honored to serve the people at that highest level? If we agree that they are honored to have that particular deployment up there to serve the people, then we should allow them to be called honorable. Because it is not everybody out of the 60-something million people. Then you've got that few 400 people that have been requested and they accepted to serve the nation at that level, and then they are reasonably honored to be given that opportunity to serve at that level. And there shouldn't be anything wrong about being called honorable. Ordinarily, there are protocols in all sections, like as somebody has indicated in the court, that we calling people there my lord and my whatever. And I think we should understand in that particular sense that those people in those courts, they are serving the country at that particular level, an important job to be done for everybody.
Okay, I hear you. What I'm saying, I mean, just my loose translation, honorable sort of refers to deserving honor. Now, I'm saying to you, I know why they're elected, but we don't revere people who are elected, and we shouldn't revere them. The fact that they're elected more so than ever before means they understand their critical role in serving the people who put them there, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that is the case, but they are honored to be given that opportunity to serve at that level.
Yeah, but excepting they're addressing themselves. You see, the public doesn't call them honorable. Yes. The public doesn't call them honorable. It's the honorables themselves that call themselves honorables, if you get my point. It's like people in the same team calling each other by titles. That's really what it is. Think about it. Okay?
That's correct. That's correct. It's a uniform way of addressing each other in a particular setup.
Okay.
Like in church or whatever, then people calling brother or sister and those kind of things. But when you go to them individually outside, you may find that some of them are misbehaving. But when they are in church, they are calling themselves brother and sister and the rest. And that is the protocol that is applicable there in the house for them to address each other.
Yeah, okay, I got that. I mean, you know my views about it. I'm not sold on it. I mean, I think they can call them double honorable if they build this country into a champion nation. I'd be thrilled, but they must deliver on that. Okay, but if there's another title, that's also fine. I'm not sold on it. I'm just raising an issue that, for me, I'd be quite embarrassed actually if somebody calls me honorable in Parliament, but I'm not in Parliament, of course. Lanius, thanks for that. Let's get another thought on Polokwane. From Polokwane, Mabule wants to talk about the water issues. Hi, Mabule.
Hi, Ashraf. Great show.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Yeah, I got the interview with the previous person from Salga towards the end, but I think the issue of the water management is quite serious. I mean, I think in the end, he even admitted it will be worse than electricity if it continues in the direction that it's going. One of the things that the previous Minister of Water Affairs spoke about was the fact that there are many people that are working in the sector that shouldn't be working in the sector. And I think, for me, issues on water, we say water is life. It's more like somebody that is busy doing surgeries in hospitals but not qualified as a doctor. So there are many people that are working with this precious resource, but they're not qualified. So they are not qualified engineers. They are not. They haven't been trained in any way. That's why I think we had a case in Naisma last year where there was a body of a person that had been in the reservoir for some time. I mean, you can imagine the people that were drinking that water from that reservoir when there's a body. So the security around it, the water treatment is not happening. I think there's a lot of professionalization that needs to happen there, to a point where, like we say now, if you practice as a doctor not being trained, it's criminal. We also make it to that point that nobody should work in the water sector without being qualified, because in as much as we understand understand the issue as a doctor, and I'll keep using that as an example, we must also understand the same seriousness when it comes to water infrastructure to say, if we dump people, if in a municipality, Ashraf is not doing well in whatever section, we just go dump him to work at water and sanitation. Later on, we get surprised when water is not clean. I mean, these days, more and more people in cities are buying water from these shops that clean water because they don't trust water from the tap.
Yeah, which pushes the prices up. I mean, we're spending far much more money than we should be spending by buying this bottled water. Yeah.
And 20 years ago, it wasn't the case when we had that blue whatever status that used to be done. But it looks like the situation is getting worse. I think actually yesterday the Premier of Limpopo admitted that Limpopo is regressing. There was an access of 70% water access. Now it has gone back to 69%. I mean that is just sad that in this democracy we should be getting more people having more access to water, but in some situations it is regressing. It's no longer unheard of to be in a suburb and not have water for a day or two.
All right,
and how can that be acceptable?
Well, I mean, you're quite right. Thank you. It's a crisis, and like the guest said, I don't want to be alarmist, but it's got the potential to get worse than load shedding, and that is for me an alarm bell ringing. No question about that. We're gonna get you an update on the goings on in Kenya right after this.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
All right, let's. So you may be aware, we've discussed this over the last couple of days. There's been protests around the Finance Bill 2024 in Kenya, and much of the protests have been amongst with the young people who, in a nutshell, are saying it is unaffordable. We cannot have increases on a whole range of different issues. It's reached such a level. The protest escalated yesterday. There was some degrees of fire. There was also an issue around. Then there was shooting, and I understand people died as well. I've now heard that the finance bill will not be signed, according to the president. I think he's referred it back to Parliament. And there's more coming out of it. We'll get an analysis of that in a moment. First of all, listen to this.
Because I run a government, but I also lead people. And the people have spoken. I am grateful to all the members of the National Assembly who voted yesterday affirmatively for the Finance Bill 2024 as amended on the floor of the House to incorporate the views generated through public participation. And following the passage of the bill, the country witnessed widespread expression of dissatisfaction with the bill as passed, regrettably resulting in the loss of life, destruction of property, and disintegration of constitutional institutions. On my own behalf, and on behalf of these members and many other Kenyans, I send my condolences to the families of those who lost their loved ones in this very unfortunate manner. Consequently, having reflected on the continuing conversation around the content of the Finance Bill 2024 and listening keenly to the people of Kenya who have said loudly that they want nothing to do with this Finance Bill 2024, I concede, and therefore I will not sign the 2024 Finance Bill, and it shall subsequently be withdrawn, and I have agreed with these members that becomes our collective position.
That's the voice of the Kenyan President William Ruto. Not signing the finance bill will not be enacted into law after huge pressure. What is it? Massive stepping down, strategic sideways movement. Let's make of it what you may think, but let's get the thoughts of Demas Kiprono, who's the acting executive director of the Kenyan section of the International Commission of Jurists. We spoke to him, in fact, yesterday. Demas, appreciate your time. 24 hours is a long time.
Yes, it is.
I think it took some time for him to reflect. So this is 24 hours after what happened yesterday, where the protesters who were expressing their dissatisfaction with the finance bill reached Parliament. And at night, yesterday, he did a speech, the president did a speech and basically characterized the protesters as criminals. And he was visibly angry. However, I think over the hours after he slept on it and spoke to his advisors, he realized that the expression by the Kenyan people was very clear, and that he had to cede ground so that he can maintain peace, stability, and legitimacy as a government that listens to its people. However, it's unfortunate that people had to die. There have been, according to the National Commission on Human Rights, there have been 21 fatalities, hundreds of injuries, a lot of destruction that happened in Nairobi and in other towns, including the president's hometown in Eldoret. And so it's a point of reflection, but it also underpins that in whatever government organ is doing, they must really refer back to the people who are the ones who are sovereign, who are the ones who give them the legitimacy, who are the ones who put them in office in the first place. And so it is encouraging that the president has heeded to the young Kenyans who are saying that, number one, that we need to live within our means. We need to have a budget that does not have extravagant spending. For example, we had provisions for the office of the First Lady, the provisions for the office of the Second Lady, and they were saying these are not constitutional offices. They were allocated billions of Kenya shillings. And so in his speech, the president has said that his government will listen to the young people and they will practice austerity, starting with his office, which is one of the main spenders usually in this republic. So it's quite a serene moment for this republic.
So a couple of things here. One is that, clearly he didn't sign the bill. He's referred it back to Parliament, but he was going to sign it, right? So it's not like he didn't know. It's not like he didn't know the contents of the bill, right? What changed in his perceptions? Did the protests really do it because of the vast number of protests and he was concerned about it, or did they rethink policy?
I think it is the protest that did it, mainly because this round of protests have been different from any other protests because there is no political party behind it. There is no one. There is no face behind it. There's no face that wants to take power from the current regime. But this was an organic movement. Let's call it a movement. It was an organic movement started online and spilled over to the streets. And it was so amorphous, so organized that the government really did not take it seriously. Last week, when they went to the streets on Tuesday, on Thursday, and perhaps what happened yesterday, where the protests were widespread everywhere in Kenya. Almost every township within Nairobi was affected by this protest. The country came to a standstill, and so it was clear that the youth who make up a majority in the country do not want this law.
Yeah.
And when it turned into violence, I'm sure the president had to now balance between the ambitions of his government and the finance bill and actually maintaining national unity and national stability.
Yeah. And does it therefore come across as an act of statesmanship or as an act of cowardice? Depends how you look at it.
Ultimately, it comes across as an act of statesmanship, but other observers would ask, did you see this coming? Because for some people, it was clear that there was widespread dissatisfaction with the contents of that bill. and they would have expected the government to capitulate to the will of the people earlier. It did not have to go and get to the ugly scenes that we saw where Parliament was breached, property was destroyed within Parliament. The Nairobi County offices, the governor's offices was burnt down. There were courts in Eldoret, which is in Rift Valley province, were burnt. A lot of looting happened in the streets. Yet the protests that happened on Tuesday last week and Thursday last week were very peaceful.
And then escalated. Yeah. Let's just as we wrap up, let's just go back to what was the issue in the first place. When we talk about this finance bill, what was it about? How was that going to shift the lives, the practical living of most Kenyans that so enraged them, especially the youth?
Yes, so the finance bill had very many interesting provisions in it. It sought to raise billions of Kenya shillings to support the budget that the president had proposed. And one of the ways they were going to raise these monies was really expanding the tax base to affect everyone as they are consuming things. So, for example, you have a vehicle levy, you'd pay 2.5% of the value of the vehicle every year. And you already own the vehicle, you already pay insurance of the vehicle and other taxes. They were going to impose 16% taxes on that. They were going to impose taxes, an import tax. Anything imported was to have an expanded tax that would have made, apart from even making life unbearable for the citizens, it was going to make doing business in Kenya very, very punitive. It was economists estimate that it was going to cause companies to close shop and go outside Kenya. Okay. But I think the government was thinking that if it would have just gotten this through and be able to raise revenue in that way, that they would be able to perhaps...
Okay, lastly, what is the response from the protesters who have clearly seen what's happened and now they've seen that bill was not signed into law?
From the older generation, I think it's a sigh of relief. That it's a sign of a person who listens, a person who cares for everyone in Kenya, a person who has seen that things were going wrong and decided to put a stop to it. To the young, some of them are sort of satisfied, but others are saying that this took too long. We had to die. And this is not in the way that we expected things to be. What has come, the sideshow about this protest is a lot of human rights violations that happened. There were abductions. Social media influencers were being abducted. I think about 22 were abducted, held incognito. Most will have been released later, but under the constitution, this should not be the case. There were arbitrary arrests. There were excessive use of force and firearms by the police, and which resulted in injuries and death. And so many are asking, was this necessary? But it also underpins the struggle that Kenya has had since independence of a police force or a police service that doesn't really serve the people but serves the regime of the day. And so we really need, even as we speak to the austerity measures, we really need to now start talking about reforms. We need to reform our institutions so that they can start serving the people instead of serving the interests of the regime.
Well, that's something we talk about so often. Demas Kiprono, thank you for your time. And as you asked the question, should this have happened in the first place? Thanks for your time there. More on Kenya and your comments. I welcome that. Let's get your point on that issue. In the meantime, it's just gone 5 o'clock. Here's the news with Greg Rose.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Thank you, Ashraf. Controversial Kenyan finance bill withdrawn and Joburg bus shooting a hit. Good day to you. The Kenyan President William Ruto has rejected and withdrawn the proposed finance bill. Protests against the controversial tax bill started last week. They escalated into more violence yesterday when police opened fire on demonstrators trying to storm Parliament. At least 5 demonstrators were killed and dozens wounded. Ruto was speaking outside Parliament in the capital, Nairobi.
I am directing for immediate further austerity measures to reduce expenditure, starting with the office of the President, the entire presidency, and extending to the entire executive arm of government. Operational expenditure in the presidency be reduced to remove allocations for the confidential fort, reduce travel, hospitality, purchase of motor vehicles, renovations, and other expenditures.
The former Chief Financial Officer of Steinhoff, Andries Benjamin Legansi, has been released on bail of 150,000 rand. He appeared at the Pretoria Specialised Commercial Crimes Court following his arrest this morning. He faces 5 counts of fraud, 2 counts of racketeering, 1 of corruption, and for contravening the Financial Markets Act. Hawk spokesperson Katlehu Mukhale.
Legansi appeared alongside his co-accused Stefanus Johannes Grobler, 74, former head of Treasury. Grobler was arrested on the 22nd of March 2024 and appeared in court on the 25th of March where he was granted 150,000 rand bail. Today he appeared again for postponement and review of his bail conditions. Legansi was also granted 150,000 rand bail with conditions, and both will appear again in the Specialised Commercial Crimes Court in Pretoria on the 4th of October 2024.
Johannesburg police believe the murder of a passenger on a metro bus at Vleerhof, west of Johannesburg, was a hit. The woman was shot as she boarded the bus. She ran and fell down a few meters away. She was then followed by the shooter, who continued to fire shots at her. Police spokesperson Max Marsha.
At this stage, we can confirm that this is not transport related, but it looks like a hit because this passenger is not necessarily connected to the bus company. It was just a mere passenger going wherever he was going, and the suspect seemed to know that he's boarding the bus here, and he shot only her. He was not interested in other people, but only this lady.
MK party members in the Moses Mabhida region in KwaZulu-Natal have reiterated calls for a rerun of the May elections. They demonstrated outside the Pietermaritzburg Magistrates Court where an IEC official appeared on charges of contravening the Electoral Act. MK party member Stembiso Matenjwa.
The results from the voting station and the result that were captured in the system of IEC, some of the VTs were not corresponding. That will tell you will find Umkhonto Wesizwe were receiving 4,000 votes in Scottsville, maybe 36. Then when you check from the app of the IEC, it's not longer 4,000, it's 2,000. And it's a problem. If we have find it around Umkhonto, how much more in the whole province? Because our expectation in this province and the number of people who went out in their numbers to vote for Umkhonto Wesizwe are not the numbers that are on the screens of IEC. It's not 45% that we are foreseeing. In fact, Umkhonto Wesizwe is in charge of this province. The will of the people must be heard, and IEC must correct that thing.
Former Free State Premier Mxolisi Dukwana has been appointed the Speaker of the Provincial Legislature. He was nominated unopposed in a special sitting. Nolita Ndungane has been appointed as the Deputy Speaker. The top story: the Kenyan President has rejected and withdrawn a proposed finance bill. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khos.
In your sports this hour, Bafana turned their attention to COSAFA Cup business. SA men's hockey to face heavyweights Belgium in Olympic preparations, and undisputed heavyweight world champion Usyk vacates IBF belt. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N12 westbound in Boksburg has a crash reported on the off-ramp to the R21 highway. The N3 southbound in Edenville has a crash before Giluli's interchange. The M1 southbound is slow moving through Crown interchange towards Boysons. Allendale Road eastbound in Klerkop has delays towards Mastiff Road. In KZN, the M4 southbound, a truck fire incident reported on the on-ramp to the M7 east, which is causing some delays. The N2 southbound has a bus crash reported at Amanzimtoti, and there's heavy traffic in the Umbilo area, so you're asked to expect delays. Bayard Road has track congestion to and from the harbour area. In Cape Town, Batencroft Street in the CBD has a crash reported near Wales Street. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Cromboom Road exit. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is slow moving towards Hospital Bend, and the N7 Jakes Hadwell Drive southbound is queuing towards Voortrekker Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Set in a gleaming new high-tech trauma center that deals with only the most serious cases, an emergency medical team must battle through the crucial first hour of care to save lives that hang in the balance. Each distinctive case is told with a thrilling intensity and nail-biting urgency as the team work on the very edge of the medically possible. This is a medical drama like no other. This is Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime. Only on S3. Open up.
Durban is open for business and investment. A large delegation from the United States of America, including captains of industry, business, investors, finances, decision makers, and high-profile leaders will attend the 2024 Resurgence Durban Conference to explore and maximize investment opportunities in Durban. Be part of the Resurgence Durban Conference taking place at the Durban ICC from the 17th to the 21st of July 2024. Durban is forging ahead with its plan of action that is aimed at boosting trade and investment within South Africa, the African continent, and the rest of the world. Businesses must register now to exhibit at the conference. Closing date is the 30th of June 2024. To register for the Resurgence Durban Conference and for more information, visit www.resurgenceconference.org.
Emails, kind regards, school pickups, traffic, goals, live. Hey, kuningi. We know. But it doesn't have to be. With UNISA, you get to define your tomorrow. Why not shape your future with flexible and accessible learnings that accommodate your lifestyle? Applications for a limited number of masters and doctoral qualifications for the 2024 academic year are still open for admission. Visit unisa.ac.za for more information. UNISA, define tomorrow.
Life gets too busy, and SABC Sport gets it. That's why we're bringing you Final Analysis, the sole destination to fill you in on all sport action that goes down every weekend. This is a premium Sunday night wrap-up show, giving match highlights, final scores, post-game reactions, expert analysis, and sport news weekend roundup of the local and international arena. Catch Final Analysis every Sunday at 9:30 p.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Absolutely. And if you're listening late because maybe you're at work and you can't listen live, well, I mean, you can, first of all, not just on the radio, listen on streaming live. And wherever you are in the world, South Africa, the continent, anywhere in the world, if you're listening on streaming live now, well, why don't you tell me where you are? Because I'd love to know, okay? Just probably WhatsApp text is the best way to do it, 0614104107. You can also send out a voice note, same number, but to call in on any of the big issues, you can do that. Certainly the issues that moves the National Pulse, 086 000 2032. Well, my name is Ashraf Garda. One of the big issues that certainly moved the National Pulse is the issues of whether we should call the elected MPs honourable, as they call themselves. In fact, we don't call them that. They call themselves that. And Val is saying from KZN, Ashraf, hi. To that caller, there is a big difference between being honoured and being honourable. I don't have to say much more than that. The other big issue is what's going on in Kenya, and we've touched on that story. So now that bill, that controversial bill, the Finance Bill 2024, withdrawn, massive pressure in that country. We're going to talk about artificial intelligence in the workplace. Do not miss that. That comes up shortly. But let's start with a really sad story. You may have heard of this earlier on today. Two South African soldiers representing the South African National Defence Force who've been in the DRC, they've been sadly killed, right? and 20 others wounded. I understand in a mortar attack at their barracks, I understand, where they are situated in the eastern part of the DRC. Now, the Defence Force also confirmed that 4 members who were critically injured have been hospitalized, and the rest of them suffered minor injuries, so they should be discharged soon. But the key part here, 2 people died, and really condolences to their family. And again, no matter what the situation, it is really, really sad when you can just imagine the family getting the news now about the loss of life. But there's more to it than that. Just the loss of lives. The bigger picture beyond that is like, what are they doing there? How protected are they when you find that more than 20 people injured, right? So let's find out more about what's going on in the DRC with regard to South African soldiers with Helmut Heitman, who's a defense analyst. Helmut, good chatting to you. You're live on the National Pulse.
Hi, afternoon.
Thank you. So first of all, what do you understand by what has happened where, 20 soldiers injured, another 2 have died, 4 of them more than just injured. What do you understand by that? Because I'm looking at the vulnerability of being under attack.
Well, yeah, look, if you're on a fixed base, and particularly in a situation where the bad guys, or should we just say the opposition, can move in among the civilian population, because they're quite possibly dressed in civilian, they would like vehicles, they can sneak to within mortar range of a base like that. It's a fixed target, they know where it is, it's fairly easy to do that, and then drop mortar bombs on you. It's, to prevent that, you would need either a base defense system, the so-called CRAM, counter-rocket artillery mortar system. We had one in development, but it was never funded, so that went away. Or you need to run really vigorous patrols quite far out. I mean, we're talking many kilometers out, and I'm not sure they have enough troops on the ground to do that just yet. So this sort of thing is inevitable. It happens to most armies in the circumstances. Our problem is, no CRAM system, as I said, and no attack helicopters to go out there and quickly mete out retribution to the mortar team. So essentially, we're sitting there on a target.
I was going to say sitting ducks. I mean, we're saying the same thing, isn't it?
Yep. I'm afraid so. And really, to me, it is grossly unfair to our soldiers to send them out without the equipment and the capabilities they should have.
Well, we were hoping to get hold of the South African Defence Force spokesperson, and we can't get to them at the moment. But I think you've raised some really, really important issues. So notwithstanding the fact that people who are part of an army, they understand the risks in the army, but you don't want to have the odds against you, right? And are you suggesting that generally speaking, in a case like this, that the odds are against them? There's a very good chance that something's going to be shot out from the air and they will die.
Look, I mean, soldiers always have risk when it comes to operations, unless it's disaster relief maybe. So they always have risk, but it's really not acceptable to deliberately send troops into a high-risk situation than they need. For instance, without air support. We learned in Mozambique, for instance, we lost that one special forces operator killed during a casualty evacuation because there wasn't a way for providing top cover, because there was no money to maintain the Roy Parker, so they weren't flying. If you're going to send troops out, you need to send them with whatever capabilities they need to do the job. And you need to send out enough troops too. In the Eastern DRC, the SADC force, SADC force, is going to be about 5,000. There is no way on this earth that 5,000 troops can do anything to change the situation in the Eastern DRC. 15,000 MONUSCO troops couldn't do it. What makes us think 5,000 SADC troops can?
Help us understand why are they there? Why are they there in the first place? I understand
I was getting to that.
The president. Yes. Well, go ahead. Yes.
Look, we remember the 2 things. One, we would like to have a peaceful region around us, really just for political reasons to start with. Less immigration, illegal immigration, less cross-border crime, etc. But much more to the point, we're a manufacturing, exporting economy. Africa south of Sahara, and particularly the SADC, is one of our most profitable markets, simply because right next door there isn't much transport cost. So the safer, the more stable, the more peaceful, and the more prosperous they are, the better for us. More jobs here, more money flowing to SARS from taxes, etc. DRC is a big export customer for us. It supports more than 150,000 jobs, I think. From that angle, it makes strategic sense, it makes economic sense to help the DRC resolve their security problems. That's in principle why we're there. The other little issue, of course, is then if we can't do the job properly, why are we doing it? Now, my view is the Defence Force should be vastly better funded than it is and have all sorts of capabilities it doesn't currently have. And if we're not going to do that, we shouldn't get involved. The most we should do is Cabo Delgado, because that's right next door and presents a potential threat to Cahora Bassa, the gas fields, and even the Mozambique Channel shipping route.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a conundrum, isn't it? I mean, you want to be on side with regard to, defending against any human rights abuses, and that's why South Africa would be there to defending that situation as part of SADC. But there's also an affordability factor that we've experienced with so many other things in our country, and you wonder just how much can they spend. But yeah, so what then would be the solution, considering the issues you've raised?
Yes, I mean, the short-term solution is to find a way to get out of the Congo mission, quite honestly. Now, the problem with that is if we just pack up and leave, they will crow that they've chased us away and they won.
Yeah.
Which is embarrassing for politicians. I don't care about politicians too much. But it's going to cost us casualties in some future situation we get into. These people will think we'll run away. So try their luck. And what's happening in the Congo now, in the DRC, is they're probing us. They've launched several attacks, they've won ambush, to see how we will react. So just packing up and leaving would create future problems. Staying there without the proper support is just going to cost us casualties and not achieve the purpose of the mission. So we need to find something in between, and maybe the only thing that's viable at the moment would be to move in a lot of additional troops, if we can find the airlift to do it, launch a major counter-operation to really punish M23, and then say, okay, we've done the job, goodbye, we're going home. Which is pretty much what the Chinese did in Vietnam way back when they invaded and got beaten up, and they declared themselves the winners and went home. And the Brits did that in Malaya against the insurgency, and declared themselves the winner and left the Malaysians to deal with the insurgency for the next 20 years. So that's possibly the only option now. But the longer-term option is we've really, at government level, got to decide, are we a regional power or aren't we? If we are, what capabilities do we need in the defense force, and then fund them properly? If we aren't, wind our necks in.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, you've raised many important issues. We need to get the thoughts of the South African National Defence Force, not today, as soon as we can, because I think we need to follow it up. But thank you for your time, Helmut Heitmann, who's a defence analyst, and reflecting on the fact that 2 South African Defence Force soldiers killed, 20 more wounded. That's in a mortar attack in the DRC. They are there in the DRC to basically authorized by the president to fulfill the country's obligation towards the SADC mission in the DRC. What do you think? Obviously the sympathies go to the family, but any thoughts, any comments on the role of the South African National Defence Force in the DRC and in terms of their general enforcing of peacekeeping in not just that area, but in other regions where they need to do so, and that's something very authorized by the entire region. Any thoughts, comments? 086 000 2032, WhatsApp, text or voice notes 0614 104 107. You can also comment on our social media platforms, Twitter as well as Facebook, SFM Radio. You can follow me, Ashraf Garda. Do use that hashtag, the National Pulse, and do tell me where you're listening from, anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. So Titi says, I'm listening from Juba in South Sudan. Well, there you are. That's exactly the point. There are people from all around the world listening to us, basically connected to the National Pulse. What about being connected to artificial intelligence right after this?
With misinformation and disinformation around us all the time, where can we turn to for news and information that is not fake? Radio, of course, your number one trusted source of reliable and truthful news and information. For over 3 decades, we have been a signatory to the BCCSA Broadcasting Code of Conduct, and we pride ourselves as a trusted source of information. Say no to false news and disinformation that circulates online. Radio, keeping it real and fighting fake since day one. A message from the National Association of Broadcasters.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
I'll tell you what, if you're not having this conversation, you should be, which is, how do you use artificial intelligence, AI, as an enabler in your workplace? How do you use it in the medical field? How do you use it as a teacher? How do you use it to win a World Cup semi-final like the cricket team tomorrow morning? How do you use it to try and prevent crime and eliminate that completely? How do you use artificial intelligence to eradicate poverty and inequality? What I'm getting at is, it is an enabler, and we should be having this conversation across the board. So in that light, I think the conversation we're having next is, which should be particularly significant, because we are talking about the future of work, right? And there's a seminar relating to generative AI and the future of work in South Africa's creative industry that I'm particularly interested in, and I think you should be too. So with me is Tseliso Maklomi, who's from the Institute for the Future of Work at the Tshwane University of Technology. Tseliso, good chatting to you. You're plugged into the National Pulse.
Thank you so much, Ashraf, for having me today.
It's a pleasure, right? I mean, I take it as you probably heard in my intro, that the issue of understanding what the future of work is and the role of artificial intelligence in that future of work is like one of the biggest issues we should be talking about right now, isn't it?
Yeah. No, thank you so much. Let me give a bit of a background. Tshwane University of Technology is one of the biggest universities in the country. Because at any given time we would have about 60,000 students. And in trying to resolve one of the key problems that we had, which is basically graduate unemployment or employability, TUT then decided to come up with a concept called the Institute for the Future of Work, which is mandated to look at the patterns or the new jobs that are out there, but also to interact with the industry in order to understand what does the industry require from the perspective of the graduates that are coming out of the university. And as an institute, we are also then mandated with positioning TUT as a thought leader within the perspective of the fourth industrial revolution and also the perspective of the future of work. And we do that not only through research or innovation, but also through thought leadership sessions, of which one of them is the one that we'll be hosting in the coming week, looking in the generative AI and the future of work in the creative industry.
Okay, so let's talk about this coming one. So, I mean, again, is it, first of all, open to anybody, or is it a closed thought leader conversation?
It is open to everyone. And I think, Ashraf, sometimes we tend to misinterpret or give the creative industry one-sided definition. Because when we talk creative industry, people are thinking acting and music. And however, creative industry would also include your fine arts. Creative industry would also then include your visual communication. And so we are then saying through the thought leadership, which we'll host on Friday, the industry will be represented by some of the major industry players. And also then we have civil society or associations of those that are involved within the civil society. And we also then have government and academia in the room. And the main purpose for the session is to understand what is generative AI. Is generative AI a friend or a foe? Because at the moment, I think there are those that look at AI as an enabler, and then there are those that look at AI as something that is going to replace human beings. So those are some of the discussions that we want to have. And but we also want to be looking at the impact that this disruptor has on the creative industry. If you remember, Ashraf, I think it was last year, there was a strike in Hollywood where the producers and the actors were up in arms about the use of generative AI in their space. And the reason for that was, for example, your B and your C grade actors who would make their money through voiceovers when you are doing your animations and everything. They were now being replaced by generative AI. And so we are then in South saying that same phenomenon that is happening that part of the world is slowly creeping into our industry, and we need to be proactive to make sure that we look at generative AI as an enabler, and also how will we be able to use it to our own advantage.
An important issue is raised. I can think of the entire country listening in and saying, what does generative AI mean when we talk about AI? So generative?
Yeah, look, we have AI, which basically just look at the patterns and mimics human behavior. Now, with a generative AI, it has a bit of a higher intelligence. And we can trace it back to the time of machine learning, but it's now more advanced and it can create content. When you talk about content, we are talking about images. When you talk content, we talk about music. When you talk content, we talk about text and the codes. And what makes it different from all other forms of AI is that it can produce original content.
And that is the one that then could render other people out of jobs, right? And that's per the Hollywood example you just gave.
Correct. It can. However, I think in one of the interviews that I gave, I said one of the key problems that we tend to have is that we underestimate the human ingenuity. The reason that there is AI, even Gen AI, is because humanity have created the pattern. And now, from the perspective of it being an enabler, we then start to say, can human beings become more smarter than the machines? That is the discussion that we need to start having, because then machines are supposed to start doing human bidding instead of the other way around.
Is there right? I mean, well, I think we can have that debate all day long in terms of how do they work? How do they work side by side? How does the human being and the machine that we created work alongside each other in perfect harmony? I'm thinking to the tune of a song that has the line "in perfect harmony." Ebony and Ivory, it was. Yeah.
One of the things that, as I have said, that one, we cannot deny the existence of human ingenuity. And now, central to that, remember that any form of AI, even Gen AI, does not and cannot do anything unless it's prompted or commanded. And now, coming to the creative industry, for example, you prepared for your session, and but probably if people were to look at your notes, you did not write every line that you are saying. And therefore, imagine then you throw that into the Gen AI or into your Chat GPT. It can actually come up with the whole program without you.
Yeah. Wow.
But that happened because now you would have actually prompted it how to go about that program.
Okay, lots to talk about there. We can talk for an hour. I can tell you now, it's that important. Just give me maybe a website address so that people can follow in terms of the events that's coming up on behalf of the Institute for the Future of Work. Yeah.
We will be posting, for example, for live streaming. It will be live streamed on the TUT website, but on TUT, YouTube channel, it would be live stream on the TUT Facebook page, and it will also then there will be some links that will be on our LinkedIn and all other social media handles that we have.
Okay, I could well be one of your followers. You never really know. Tsaliso Motlomi, thanks for your time. Much appreciated, from the Institute for the Future of Work at the Tshwane University of Technology. That's ahead of a thought leadership seminar on generative AI and the future of work in South Africa's creative industry, and that comes up on Friday. Right, further comments on, and this is something I touched on earlier, to say, well, if we're going to stick with the honourable part, well, what about bringing in something uniquely South African? And Madoda's saying, I think, Ashraf, there must be African names to be used in Parliament. They must be adopted by parliamentarians themselves. We are talking about whether MPs, if you tune in late, never tune in late, but if you did, you can listen to all the podcasts of what we've done so far today. It's all there. But the bottom line to that is, should MPs call each other honourable? That's really what it is, not you and I, because we're not in Parliament. They talk to each other and call each other as honourable. Or do you find that rather irritating? Or, as some have said, it is the way that they need to be honoured. But there is a difference between honoured and honourable. And then often in Parliament, when they do that, you would find that they would refer to the person as honourable and then go on to then criticise that person or his or her party. It's a strange world we live in. 5:30, here's the news headlines with Greg.
A quick look at the headlines at this half-hour. Special meeting of the ANC's NEC in March resolved to allow members who face criminal charges and stepped aside to attend sittings in legislative bodies and committees. The Kenyan president has rejected and withdrawn a proposed finance bill, and the former chief financial officer of Steinhoff has been released on bail of 150,000 rand. There's a full update at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, in Kempton Park, the R21 northbound has ramp closure with no access to Voortrekker Road due to a truck crash, and the R21 northbound has a truck crash reported at Voortrekker Road exit. The M1 southbound is queuing through Crown Interchange towards Boysons. The N12 westbound in Boksburg has a crash reported on the ramp to the R21 highway. Winnie Mandela Drive southbound in four ways is slow moving at Leslie Avenue. The N1 southbound in Midrand has a stationary vehicle near Samrand Road, and the N1 northbound in Centurion has a crash before Botha Avenue exit. In KZN, the M4 southbound, that truck fire incident on the on-ramp to the M7 East has been causing quite a bit of delays. The M7 eastbound has truck congestion reported in that Rosberg area. The N3 westbound is queuing towards the M13 Paradise Valley interchange. Heavy traffic in the Umbilo area, so you're asked to expect delays there. And Bayhead Road has truck congestion to and from the harbour area. In Cape Town, the R300 southbound is queuing towards Stock Road. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards Bellville. Batencroft Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway, and Batencroft Street in the CBD is where a crash was reported near Wales Street. Then Voortrekker Road eastbound, slow moving through Maitland. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, there's cricket tomorrow morning. I'm reminding everybody, but there's Bafana playing now. Tumi, go ahead.
Well, it's almost time for Bafana to face Mozambique in the COSAFA Cup, and Bafana assistant coach Helman Kalele says that he's eager to explore with the latest national team players picked for the COSAFA Cup. With Hugo Bruce excused from overseeing regional tournaments, Kalele says that Kalele has been tasked with taking charge, and all eyes will be on the 23-man squad selected.
We as a technical team, we are also excited with the type of players that we have brought in. As we all know that initially we released 51 or 52 players. The list of 52 players. That shows that we have massive talent in the country. But unfortunately, some of the players, they couldn't make it because of many reasons, tactical reasons and other, team factor reasons.
Then results from earlier on, Eswatini and Botswana settled for spoils in a goalless stalemate in their Group A opener. Meanwhile, Lionel Messi may sit out of Argentina's next Copa America game against Peru to rest a sore thigh, with his team already qualified for the next round after 2 wins. The 37-year-old required brief medical treatment on his thigh during Argentina's 1-0 win over Chile at the US-hosted tournament, and Argentina are top of Group A with 6 points, and they play Peru on Sunday. Meanwhile, Phil Foden has temporarily left the England camp at the Euros and returned home due to family reasons, and it hasn't been clear on when he is set to return. In cricket, Proteas captain Aiden Markram says that their experience and having been there together as a group for a long time will definitely count in their favour in the semi-finals against Afghanistan. The Proteas are unbeaten in this World Cup so far after winning their last Super 8 game by 3 wickets against the West Indies to ensure their places in the last 4. And Markram believes that they can continue their momentum into the semi-finals.
You can take a lot of sort of calmness from the fact that this competition, we've been involved in quite a few close games, so it's not going to feel like anything new to us. That being said, also we take a lot of belief knowing that we might not be in ideal positions, but we've been able to get the job done, and I think that offers you quite a bit of calmness as well as a team. So keeping those things close to us, I would say, and you always look at the way you want to play the game, and if you operating in that space, I think you take calmness, you take confidence in your decision making, and hopefully those few things can help us.
Well, it's 30 days to go to the Paris Olympics, and organizers of the Games says that all preparation work is on track while workers put on final touches on stadiums. Test events were also carried out at the icon Stade of France, especially on the purple athletics track. The track, involving the manual layering of more than 1,000 rolls of material, should be completed by the 1st of June. Then in motorsport, Red Bull will be wary of McLaren's Lando Norris at a home Austrian Grand Prix that Max Verstappen has dominated in the past, but this time looks like it's going to be a tight battle between the two. The 11th round of the Formula One season is a sprint weekend for the third time this year, with a 100-kilometer race at Spielberg's Red Bull's Ring on Saturday before the main event on Sunday. And Norris has a point to make after taking pole in Spain last Sunday and finishing second. He was also runner-up in Canada. Both races, the 24-year-old felt he should have won. On that note, it is a wrap from my side.
So, well, before you say goodbye, you've done your goodbye already. Any thoughts of what may happen on that cricket game tomorrow? Because, that's just more significant than the COSAFA Cup game, with respect, right?
Yes.
That's a World Cup. Yeah. And you love cricket, I know that.
I do. I love cricket with all my heart. I'm just praying that the Proteas will be calm, especially their nerves, and the fact that, sometimes the psyche of knowing that the country has been calling them chokers, and now this is a very important game. I hope it doesn't affect them mentally. However, we do have a strong side. We're looking at our top batting order. It's on point. I'm just hoping that everyone comes to the party. We haven't really seen their best as yet at the World Cup. However, for me personally, I'm still looking to see what David Miller can do for us.
Well, he hasn't quite done it,
and
neither is Reza Hendricks at the top of the order.
Reza
but you know what? Deliver it in the semi-finals and you'll be fine. Play in the final, and whether it's India or England, and go and win that World Cup, we absolutely need to do it. But here's the thought. I can't remember the figures. I think, and this is an amazing stat, I think out of 10 knockout games, not group matches, out of 10 knockout games, and 10 could be 11, it could be 8, okay? Yeah. But we've only won 1 and lost 7. It's absolutely incredible to think that we'd lose so many knockout games when we dominated before. But let me not say anything. I just want us to beat Afghanistan tomorrow.
Listen, according to Akram, he says that them winning just by the nick of things just shows that they function well under pressure. So hopefully tomorrow.
Who did we beat by 1 run the other day? We beat one of the minnows. I can't even remember. But anyway, 1 run is what we beat. So when that happened, I made the point to say that's like the Springboks, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's like just win 1 point, and they scraped through 7 runs the other day. So listen, if they can win by 2 runs tomorrow, we'll have a thriller and we'll be in the finals. That's all I want to know. Okay, if you don't have it, it's fine. 1 run.
I've got it. I'm just thinking about it now.
Well, listen. What do you think about the
Nepal?
So they beat the Nepalese team. You wouldn't list them in the top 100 cricket teams in the world. You think there's only 20 countries playing cricket, and they win by 1. And those guys had to get 2 in 2 balls at the end. Yeah. Nepal to win the game, but they didn't win it. So we should have been gone. But anyway, we're alive. And as someone said earlier on, someone said, priority 1 for me is cricket. Priority 2 for me is cricket. Priority 3 is cricket. Then comes, I think, the cabinet and other things. Okay,
I get them. I fully get them.
Right, we will chat tomorrow, hopefully in a victory mood.
All right, then.
Yeah.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
Equestrian enthusiast, somebody who's been show jumping for nearly 2 decades, knows a lot about the sport. Nicola Williams, there are many aspects to equestrian sport. Most people will know about horse racing, of course, very, very popular, very well publicized, but the lesser known sports, show jumping maybe, how does it all work? And are there governing bodies effectively for each part of the sport, or is it all controlled centrally?
So as you mentioned, there are many, many disciplines. The main ones that I've been involved with are equitation, showing, dressage and show jumping. However, there's also tent pegging, there's Western mounted games, there's quite a few. Each one has a small body which oversees the regulations for that specific discipline. However, they all fall under SAEF, which is the South African Equestrian Federation.
Top Sport on SAFM.
economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to as always, the MoneyWeb market update with Jimmy. Hi, Jimmy.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. How are you?
I'm pretty well indeed. Looking forward to the cricket tomorrow, just so that you know. Besides, because clearly the cabinet, the all-important cabinet announcements going into extra time. And then maybe a penalty shootout. So rather watch cricket,
I've taken a break from South African sports, and it's because I emotionally haven't recovered from the 1 point in the quarters, semis, and finals that the Springboks put us through. I'm still on hiatus from South African sports. I'll come back in due course when my heart rate is at a manageable pace.
When we win the World Cup for the number one time, and remember, I'm staying with the one story. Okay, got it. Yeah,
that's it.
All right, tell us your story today.
Well, on the show today, we take a look at, we go 2 for 2 today. We're taking a look at Rainbow's listing. Yesterday, we took a look at psilocybin's listing on Altex. Today, Rainbow Chicken unbundled from RCL. They listed on the JSE's main board. We're going to speak to the Rainbow CEO around what that listing means, where to from here, and what lies ahead for the business. Then we've got a conversation with Alan Gray around navigating some investment challenges. There are certainly a lot of challenges that exist within the market, and Alan Gray is of the view that if you are looking at your portfolio, a part of the portfolio is luck and some of it might just be a lot of skill. So we're going to see how we find that balance and what that balance looks like. Then we've got a conversation with the Northwest University School of Business and Governance around the uncertainty that persists in South Africa. This uncertainty that has been driving markets, that continues to drive decision making from investors' point of view. Interestingly enough, the NWU Business School has an uncertainty report of sorts that they put together where they look at all these global factors and local factors and see how those factors play on the South African picture. So we're going to look into that for the last quarter. They put that report together every quarter. So we're going to look at Q2 and basically what happened and what we can look forward to now that we know that the Government of National Unity presents a different level of uncertainty. And then we've got a conversation with Discovery around the two-pot retirement system. We know we're not going back from there. There's no turning back from where we are now. It's going to be implemented on the 1st of September. So we've got a conversation with Discovery around how to prepare for that, what to get ahead of, and what you need to know when you are looking at your retirement from that perspective. But before we get to that, markets have certainly been moving. Another red day, largely on the uncertainty side of it, but it looks like it's been red across the board. And Henke Creer joins me now to give a summary of the markets. He's been keeping an eye on the markets throughout the day, and he's not happy with the movements either. Good evening, Henku. Lovely to speak to you. I think the only real positive I'm seeing here is the Brent crude prices below $85. Other than that, it doesn't look like a good day.
Fully agree with you, Jimmy. Good evening to you and Ashraf and to me. Good evening to all of our listeners. Yes, besides for that, it was red all over the show today. US markets at the moment trading about 0.2% weaker, and then European stocks, they finished in the red a short while ago, with the FTSE 100 and the DAX each lost 0.2% today, and then the CAC 40 in France finished 0.7% weaker. Similar story here by us, where the JSE finished 0.4% down today and closed at a lower level of 79,252 points. The industrial index closed 0.6% weaker, the financial index 0.8% down, but the resources index did finish in the green, but barely, and it closed 0.1% stronger. British American Tobacco had a terrible day. It lost 3.5% today. There was also Standard Bank, which finished 2% weaker, but then BHP, another one of the 10 largest companies on the JSE, BHP gaining 1.5% today. Some other companies that gave stronger performances today were Hyprop, Omnia and WeBuyCars. Hyprop gained 4%, Omnia 3.5%, WeBuyCars as well as Equities and Fortress, they each finished 2.1% stronger, and Spar, Sanlam and Santam each gained 1.8%. But my RCL had a terrible day. It lost 15% today. Then Aspen and Tsogosan, they each lost 4%. Telkom, Remgro and the MTN Group finished the day 3% weaker. On the commodities market, the price of gold is $2,300 an ounce. Silver is trading at $29. Platinum on the dot $1,000 an ounce, and palladium is trading at $925, and the oil price is $84.50 a barrel. Then if we have a look at the exchange rate, 18 Rand 23 to the US dollar, then 23 Rand and 3 cents to the pound, 19 Rand 48 to the euro, and 12 Rand 11 cents to the Australian dollar. Bitcoin still sitting almost looking stuck at the $61,500, but that is still 1,150,000 Rand. And Jimmy, that is how the markets performed today.
Thank you very much for that update, Henku. Lots to dig into. We'll certainly be looking into these stories. We'll have a clear explanation around what happened to that RCL share price. It has something to do with that rainbow conversation we're having. And we've got an interesting conversation that I want to pick up with David Shapiro. It looks as though the European billionaire Bernard Arnault, who happens to be the founder of LVMH, has taken a stake in Richemont. We're going to dig into that just after 6. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Okay, great. Have a good show. Certainly will be listening in that, I can assure you. Right. And of course, sport coming up, a full hour coming up with Michael Abramson from 7 to 8, and then a whole lot of other current affairs talk shows that you're listening thereafter. Right. So every reason for you to stay connected here to SAFM. Right. We're going to have another guest from Kenya because of the goings on in that region, and that comes up shortly, but I will take your calls. I want to check out your WhatsApps and on a range of issues that have certainly moved the national pulse today.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
You see, here's a question. What's happening to our soldiers, says MM from Cape Town. What's happening to our soldiers is shocking but unsurprising. We saw this movie already in 2013 at the Battle of Bangi, where 15 South African soldiers died, and the Defence Review has been very clear on the need for funding. The presidency needs to either find the funding somewhere for a proper force capable of sustained operations with the right equipment, or stop sending peacekeeping troops, stop half-heartedly going to war. Well, there we are. Here's another trajectory of our soldiers' loss. However, we pass on our condolences. The real reason remains concealed. Okay, not too sure about that part. Right, let's get further thoughts. We will, I'll pick out some calls, but here's a comment on the Kenyan president.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. You see, the president of Kenya, these are the people that deserve to be called honorable. The leaders that listens to people. I think what he did there is honorable. So these are the kind of leaders that we need in South Africa. Listen to the people. The people are the ones that put you there through their vote. Now listen to the people. That is honorable. He deserves to be called honorable, not these leaders of ours. That's Devalon Rosettenville. Thank you.
All right, interesting thought. I mean, so maybe he did the honorable thing. Many people in Kenya may be still upset with him because, people have died because of heavy-handedness coming from the defense force. So they may say honorable after the event. But what happened in the first place? There's lots of honorable talk today. Here's another.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the SAFM listeners. For me, being honorable must have to do with your conduct, with your character, your moral foreground, and as to whether indeed you're serving the people of South Africa. Some of these guys who will be called honorable, they have got questionable characters and conduct. So I don't see any reason. That is why outside we don't call them honorable. We call them by their names. Slail, Polokwane.
Well, thanks for that, Salida. Well, yeah, okay. I'm not saying it's because of the dubious. I'm just saying across the board. But you are right. We don't call them honorable when we meet them in the public spaces. They call themselves honorable. Here's another.
Hi, Ashraf. This is Andre in Cape Town. Yeah, look, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Ashraf, that they do serve us. But it's going to be a contradiction in terms if you call them servant leader, because they are part of the ruling party. So how can they be the ruling party, but we call them servant?
No, we call them servant because ultimately they're there to serve us. They really are there to serve the people. So, I'm using the word servant leader or the phrase because I don't have a better one, but maybe you have a better word to describe how they should talk to each other. And if you do, let me know.
Honorable Ashraf, it reminds me the late inaugural speaker, Dr. Freni Chingala, used to say, honorable members, it is disgrace. Honorable member, your time is expired. This is disgrace. Yeah, I think now it's time to change the weight, the title, honorable members.
Well,
this
there
is
you are.
Morocco.
I mean, you're right. Freni Chinwala was this feisty woman, like honorable whatever. Disgrace. I can just imagine that contradiction. But I mean, you hear that so often when these political party figures sort of argue in Parliament and use whatever they're going to say and insult each other. They must preface honourable. I find it just quite amazing. I think here's another, if I can.
Ashraf, I think Lenius is having this discussion very wrong. Being honoured to occupy a position does not mean that you are honorable. So he's getting everything wrong there. He's very wrong. So those people don't deserve to be called honorable because most of them have got criminal cases against them there. Once again, being honored does not mean that you are honorable. It's Edward and Mpumalanga.
Thanks for that, Honourable Edward. Well, I must say, just on the last thought on that, I've often been called sir, and I told the other person the other day in fact, I'll talk about that right after this.
Am I left or right-brained? I'm leaning right. However, I do have some left-brain tendencies. Perhaps I'm left-brained with right-brain tendencies. Am I overthinking this? I don't want to be caught underthinking it. Or maybe I'm overthinking about underthinking the overthinking. Which am I?
At RMB, the simple answer is both. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity that doesn't make you choose, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Are you ready to take your brand to a whole new level? Have you ever thought about how big companies use strong PR to get more people to know about their brands? Their Law Group presents the inaugural Building a Brand Through PR Masterclass. Join us on Wednesday, July 3rd from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the DP World Wonders Stadium in Johannesburg. Learn from 12 industry experts as they share their case studies and personal testimonies that will transform your approach to brand building. Visit www.prmasterclass.co.za to get your tickets. Only 650 rands for an in-person experience, or join us virtually for just 350 rands. Don't miss this chance to master the art of PR and take your brand to the next level. Building a brand through PR Masterclass, powered by Independent Media.
Set in a gleaming new high-tech trauma center that deals with only the most serious cases, an emergency medical team must battle through the crucial first hour of care to save lives that hang in the balance. Each distinctive case is told with a thrilling intensity and nail-biting urgency as the team work on the very edge of the medically possible. This is a medical drama like no other. This is Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime only on S3. Open up.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, quick one. I've posted about on my Twitter account whether you should, whether we should drop using the title honourable. And then 74% of the people said yes, 26% said no. You can still vote. We'll get it shared from the SAFM radio Twitter handle as well. And the other one, I'll tell you about the Sir thing. Quick one. At the Results Centre, The Rock, I was called Sir by someone, and I just replied to say, I hate being called Sir, and I don't intend calling you Sir, so the only way I can stop calling you Sir if you don't call me Sir, and we sort of agreed upon that, and he said, Thank you, sir. I agree. But anyway, you get the point. Let's get to Kenya now. We've discussed it earlier on about changes in terms of that finance bill. But Miss Ray DJ has been posting a lot of her experiences and activism on her Instagram account, and we thought we'll connect with her. Hi, Miss Ray DJ.
Hi, how are you?
Good talking to you. Thank you. So, you've been, you certainly have observed and been a participant in the events of the last few days, and we thought we'll share your testimony. So go ahead and tell us.
Yes. For the past 2 years, we've been actively participating in the protest against the Finance Bill 2024, and it's a punitive finance bill that has to be withdrawn, and we're fighting for the rights of Kenyans. As Kenyans, we're being overtaxed. We are not saying that we don't want to do it, but we do not want to be overtaxed, especially when we don't see where these taxes are going. That is the problem, and that is the message.
Okay, now your line's really bad, so I'm not too sure whether we could continue, but let's just see. But just very quickly then, you know that bill was stopped today. It was not signed by the president, right? What do you feel about that?
Yes. That does not matter at this time because according to our Constitution 2010, even as the president has spoken today, he does not have the power to withdraw that bill according to our Constitution. Article 115, right? So, yes, he said his speech. Yes, the deputy president has also spoken. However, we know that he does not have the power to withdraw that bill. The person who put the bill into parliament is the only one who can withdraw that bill.
Okay.
Now, if he's not signed that bill but has returned it to parliament, the bill will still pass because if it's not signed within 14 days, it will still pass.
Okay, we're gonna leave it at that because your line's just not very clear. But I got the point of what you're saying, that it would be the person who's presented the bill in Parliament who will be able to pass it. Hopefully, we get it on another time. But in the meantime, follow Miss Ray DJ on Instagram. I'm sure they're going to do that and follow her, anecdotes and the stories of the level of activism that's taken place in Kenya, in Nairobi over the last few days, and their resultant outcomes. Thank you for your time, much appreciated. Let's get the thoughts of Warren. Hi, Warren.
Good evening, Ashraf.
Good evening.
I enjoy your program. However, what do you say to a person who you've never met before, you don't know his name in the street, you bump into him, excuse me, sir, or if he's a young person, I'm 81, do you say, excuse me, young man? A lot of people call me Madala. I don't mind. It's not a problem. Or Tata. It's not a problem. But the other way around, how do you address somebody who you've never met? Hey there, you. It's a difficult thing.
But in Parliament, the difference in Parliament, they've all met. They know each other. They're going to be with each other for a good few years.
Yeah. In Parliament, the Honourable comes from England. And we've been separated from England for a long time. So I think they should come up with something else. Call him by the given name. Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so, whoever it is. They know who the people are. And maybe that would lower the honourable thing. It's quite...
Maybe that will get them off their lofty peaks, and I think there's nothing wrong in getting them off their lofty peaks and understand that they must serve and not... they can be servant leaders, but they can't be sort of gloated over all the time. It's like, oh, we got a minister in the house, that type of thing. All right, Warren, I think you're spot on. It comes from England. And maybe we need to have a conversation about that tomorrow. In fact, just the titles that are used, the president, the leader, the speaker of the house, I think that's all fine. And why do we call them what we call them? I know, and really this is my point to end with, the issue of honourable, having spoken to the elected deputy speaker in Parliament last week, she made the point it's not inscribed, it's not like law that they have to do that, but it's just become very, very customary. And in the customary, it is like an accepted fact. It's that sort of scenario, if you can get what I'm saying, right? Okay, that's the show. Thank you for the great engagement. I always said when you engage and you're very much part, you move the national pulse yourself. Let's see what moves it tonight. I'm going to play paddle tonight, by the way, so that's going to be one of the moves that will get my pulse rate moving. But as far as, what is it, the cabinet? Well, no dice at the moment. Not now. Not tonight. I doubt it very much. It's 6 o'clock. Let's get the news now with Greg Coase.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Enjoy the rest of your evening. In this news update, ANC clarifies step-aside rule and controversial Kenyan finance bill is withdrawn. Good evening. A special meeting of the ANC's NEC in March resolved to allow members who face criminal charges and stepped aside to attend sittings in legislative bodies and committees. This is contained in a letter signed by the party's Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula. This after criticism that former Cabinet Minister Zizi Kodwa was sworn in as an MP despite facing corruption charges. He appeared in court earlier this month and was charged with contravening the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act and the Prevention of Organised Crimes Act. Despite this, he was sworn in as an ANC MP yesterday. Political analyst Lukhona Mnguni.
It appears in this instance that somebody has created some loophole because effectively there's no integrity committee report on Zizi Kodwa that prevents him from being sworn in as a member of parliament. Legally, of course, there's nothing wrong with him being, sworn in. But I think as part of what you may deem the renewal process of the ANC, there's no doubt in my mind that the ANC is always going to struggle to do this renewal because the stock of cadreship it has